Chapter 1225. All right, Grandpa eat. Xie Qian didn't mind that the pastry pig had been squeezed out of shape and sucked the sweat from his palms. Instead, he ate it with a kind expression. Xie asked curiously, "Is this cousin's daughter?" The Xie family had always had more males than females, with more males than females. Xie's generation only had 2 sisters, the rest were just servants. In the Xie family, male children were abundant, while female children were rare. Yes, her name is Lin Wan. Her nickname is Nuanyuan. Xie Qian picked up the plump Nuanyuan. She was staring at Xie with her black, grape-like eyes, as if she was wondering when a strange uncle had come to her house. Nuanyuan, call him uncle. Nuanyuan was a beat slower and mumbled the words, then giggled and buried her head in Xie Qian's neck, as if she was shy. The cute little angel's call was like a sharp sword piercing through Xie's chest, making his limbs go numb. He was touched by her cuteness. Cousin was indeed cousin. Even his daughter was so outstanding. She was indeed a descendant of the Xie family. All right, Xie didn't seem to have given up on the idea of having Li Yun acknowledge his ancestors. He couldn't move Li Yun, so he tried Xie Qian. After all, he was a descendant of the Xie family. How could he change his family name? If he changed his family name, it would be difficult for the Xie family to protect Li Yun in the future. Xie Qian had a change of heart. On the surface, he rejected Xie's good intentions. It was better to let Li Yun continue to be a Li. Xie couldn't even deal with Li Yun, let alone Xie Qian's thoughts. It was already good enough that he hadn't been led into a ditch. Lin Wan, is this your name? Xie was surprised. Men often named themselves with a single character, using a double character as a base. Women used a double character, avoiding a single character. Of course, this was only for those who were particular about it. If the common people had a decent name, it would be great. Why would they be afraid of single and double characters? For example, Li Yun's childhood nickname was Li Goju. Not just Goju, but many people also named him Tai Dan, Sha Dan, Xuanzi, and the like. It was good enough to have a name that people could call. Why would they be particular about it? Xie Qian said, "The trend in Wanzhou has been like this in recent years. I'm afraid that Nuanyuan will also walk the path of a military general in the future. Taking a double name sounds too soft." Even though Xie Qian could not imagine the scene of Nuanyuan, who looked like his wife, Wang Huiyun, wielding a knife and a gun, it was a family tradition, so he had to learn it. In the entire Xie clan, there was no need to talk about the male clansmen, as they had been beaten since they were young. The female clansmen also had to learn some martial arts. Nuanyuan's surname was Li, but she still had the blood of the Xie family flowing in her veins. Naturally, she could not abandon the family inheritance. Xie thought of his lord's name, Lu Shi, and immediately understood who had started the trend of women taking single characters. Xie's wife was shocked. She couldn't imagine what her uncle was thinking. He actually wanted Lin Wan to grow up and become a general to kill enemies. "Uncle, swords have no eyes on the battlefield." Nuanyuan, Xie Qian said, "Wanzhou has a complete system for female soldiers. If Nuanyuan wants to go to war, she'll probably start from the bottom. She won't face danger head-on. She had to train her courage first before killing the enemy to earn military merits." Although Xie Qian spoiled his granddaughter, he did not spoil her inappropriately. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Xie Qian had trained Lin Wan as the legitimate heir. None of the heirs of the Xie clan are useless. Although Nuanyuan is young, she is full of intelligence. It will be a pity if we don't teach her well. Nuanyuan didn't know what the adults were talking about. She only knew that they were all good-looking. She was well-behaved and entertained herself. Sometimes she pulled Xie Qian's sleeve, and sometimes she entertained herself. She giggled without crying or making a fuss. Which couple wouldn't like such a beautiful little angel? They liked her so much that they couldn't wait to give birth to a daughter who was as well-behaved and obedient as Nuanyuan. Compared to the harmony in the Li residence, Han Yu's situation was a bit awkward. He had wanted to take his wife to see Master Yuanjing. Han Yu had always respected Master Yuanjing as a father. Now that he was taking his wife to see Master Yuanjing, the meaning was obvious. He tried his best to ease the relationship between husband and wife, but Mrs. Han was stubborn and arrogant, so it didn't work. Mrs. Han politely declined Han Yu's proposal. Instead, she urged Han Yu to leave the house as soon as possible with the excuse that it was getting late. Paying a visit to someone's home was also very particular. The most basic etiquette was not to suddenly visit the host while the host was eating. Han Yu looked at the sky and decided to visit Master Yuanjing's house alone with a generous gift. Most of Jiangpengji's people were gathered in one place. Although Master Yuanjing wasn't one of them, he was still assigned a house in a good location. Han Yu's house was only 2 streets away from Master Yuanjing's house, so it wouldn't take much time to get there. Han Yu's face darkened. Even if Mrs. Han didn't say it out loud, she was very thorough in her work. But Han Yu was her husband, who shared the same bed with her. How could he not understand? Han Yu could see that Mrs. Han's attitude towards Master Yuanjing was distant and arrogant. That made Han Yu very angry. Master Yuanjing became famous because he defeated the northern borderline and took back the 3 cities. He became a famous man in the 5 kingdoms. Once he became famous, people would dig into Master Yuanjing's past. His ancestors had been prominent nobles during the 16 Kingdoms period, but after 2 generations, they were punished for their words and fell into dire straits. In Master Yuanjing's generation, the whole family was so poor that they only had a genealogy book. To be honest, Master Yuanjing's starting point was even lower than the common scholars from poor families. The scholars from poor families included the common nobles, the local gentry, and the nouveau riche. They didn't have power or influence, but they had money. Even if he was famous and had students all over the world, he was not a great person in the eyes of the old and stubborn gentry. Han Yu saw his wife's carelessness and neglect, which made him even angrier. "Brother Wenbin, you are finally here." Tang Yao, who had been wandering outside for a long time, hurried to greet Han Yu. "Master knew that I would come?" Tang Yao said. "Master said that Brother Wenbin pays attention to etiquette and will definitely come today." People in the world paid attention to respecting their masters. There was a saying, "A master for a day is a father for a lifetime." Visiting Master Yuanjing was no different from visiting his father. Han Yu said, "Master is still like this." Han Yu's eyes turned red when he saw his master who he hadn't seen for many years, but he couldn't tell why he felt wronged. Master Yuanjing was comforted to see that his disciple had become so mature and steady. Master Yuanjing was not only his academic teacher, but also his life mentor. Han Yu could find his own path because of Master Yuanjing's guidance. He never hid anything from Master Yuanjing. They were like father and son who talked about everything. "There is one thing that I don't understand. Master once said that your path is to have students all over the world. Why are you trapped in Wanzhou now? Isn't this old man practicing his own Tao?" Master Yuanjing smiled and pointed at the stacks of books on the table. There were more than 20 books in each stack, and there were 5 stacks in total. These were the homework of the students of the Golden Scale Academy. The improved teaching system of the Golden Scale Academy was very effective. Compared to Master Yuanjing's previous teaching efficiency, it was like taking a rocket to the sky. There were so many students, but according to the previous standard, there were not many who were qualified to study. There was only one child prodigy like Feng Yi. Chapter 12:26. Han Yu asked for Master Yuanjing's permission. He took a few books and read them carefully. The more he read, the more shocked he became. "This," Master Yuanjing sighed. "I admire the sage's education without discrimination and teaching students in accordance with their aptitudes. I've been vigilant for many years, and I dare not slack off. But I'm weak and my energy is limited. Even if I'm ambitious, I'm still not as good as the sage." Master Yuanjing advocated education for all. What did education without discrimination mean? In layman's terms, anyone could receive education. No matter if they were smart, stupid, virtuous, or unworthy, they could all eliminate their differences through education. The ambition and ideal were beautiful, but the result was heart-wrenching. Master Yuanjing was only one person. He only had one mouth and 2 hands. His lifespan was limited to that of an ordinary person. Even if he was obsessed with education, the number of students he could teach was limited, let alone enlighten the people. Because of the limited resources, Master Yuanjing's education without discrimination was also an elite education. He unconsciously tilted the educational resources to the smart students. Master Yuanjing realized this, but he was powerless to change the situation. This problem had been bothering him for a long time. It wasn't until he came to Wanzhou that he suddenly understood the crux of the problem. Instead of worrying about scarcity, he worried about inequality. Because of the shortage of educational resources, the limited resources would be tilted to the talented students to ensure the maximum benefits. Master Yuanjing made a bold assumption. What if the educational resources could be expanded until there was a surplus? Then every student would have enough educational resources. With this premise, the education without discrimination could be implemented, and the realm of teaching students in accordance with their aptitudes could be further achieved. Hanyu put down the students' homework in shock and secretly calmed himself down. Even if he didn't know much about the academy, he knew that almost all the students in the academy were commoners. They had no learning foundation or conditions. As for talent, one or two of them might be geniuses, but not everyone was a genius. Students like these, their homework was quite good. How many students are there in the Golden Scale Academy? Hanyu asked. Master Yuanjing answered, "We are currently recruiting 2 batches of students. The 3rd batch is still being selected. There are a total of 356 students." Hanyu asked again, "How are their grades and knowledge?" Master Yuanjing smiled. "Although they are not as good as Fengyi and others, they are not inferior to the children of the same age in the aristocratic families. What about talent? Most of them are mediocre and mediocre. Their only virtue is being diligent and eager to learn." Hanyu could not help but gasp when he heard that. How long had the Golden Scale Academy been established? He had already accepted 2 batches of students, a total of 356 people. Their learning speed and depth were not the slightest bit inferior to their peers who were studying in the landowning household school. This was very frightening. These students had started learning so late, their foundations were so weak, and their talents were at the level of an ordinary person. Even if they were to hang themselves from a beam, it would still be very difficult for them to catch up with the learning speed of the aristocratic families. One had to know that most of the children of landowning households started studying at the age of 3. The students of the Golden Scale Academy were 4 to 5 years behind them. They were 4 to 5 years behind, but they could barely catch up. Wasn't that terrifying? If it wasn't a problem of talent, then it was a problem of learning methods and the education system. Hanyu spotted the core with his sharp eyes. What was the purpose of this Golden Scale Academy? He could not help but ask the question in his heart. Master Yuanjing smiled, but did not speak. He stood up and took out an unusually heavy booklet. The booklet was as thick as a knuckle, and the Xian paper was filled with words. They were all Master Yuanjing's handwriting. Some of the words were neat, some were more random, and some were scribbled. They must have been written in a hurry. Hanyu flipped through the booklet carefully. He found that the booklet could be called the history of the growth of the Golden Scale Academy. Every step of the reform was recorded in detail. The students were divided into classes according to their age and learning progress. The learning content was also systematically classified into subjects. The students' daily time was planned in detail. Different classes would learn different subjects at the same time, making perfect use of the master's teaching time. The content of the students' learning was also from shallow to deep. What was even more amazing was the new rhymes of Chinese, which greatly lowered the threshold of learning. Although the educational task was heavy, it was indeed clearer than the landowning household school. The learning efficiency of the two could not be compared. Any landowning household with a profound background had a special family school for the children of the family to study. However, it was only open to the same clan. As long as one was a member of the family, he or she could enjoy the educational resources. The family school sounded like a high-end thing, but in fact, it was not much different from a private school. A group of students of the same clan stayed together, regardless of age or learning progress. The master taught them in a unified way, and occasionally gave them one-on-one guidance. As a result, the students who learned fast were slowed down, and the students who had a weak foundation could not keep up with the learning progress. Naturally, their learning efficiency was not high. The landowning households who had the resources could not go to the family school. They could directly invite the great scholars or famous scholars to come to their homes for one-on-one teaching. By doing so, the learning efficiency, quality, and progress were all guaranteed, but the educational resources were wasted. A master could have taught more students, but the resources were all enjoyed by one student who could not take care of others. Was that not a waste? That was the ineffective overflow of educational resources. The booklet written by Master Yuan Jing was called an essay, but it was more like a brand new, well-organized system. The teaching resources and the students were balanced as much as possible to ensure the learning efficiency, quality, and progress of the students while benefiting more students. Han Yu flipped through the booklet. Following the content, he witnessed the system of the Golden Scale Academy from scratch, and it was gradually perfected and reasonable. Master Yuan Jing did not rely on his imagination or his idealized imagination to perfect this system. Instead, he focused on the actual situation. Seeing Master Yuan Jing's steady layout and planning, Han Yu felt even more ashamed of his frivolous and naive pursuit of Tao. If Jiang Pengji hadn't woken him up, he would have been stuck in a dead end. Master, you are indeed a genius in the world. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Master Yuan Jing said seriously, the Golden Scale Academy from scratch is the result of the painstaking efforts of me and a few other great scholars. It is not something that can be accomplished by one person. Without the support of the Lord of Lanting and the efforts of those children, this system would not be as fruitful as it is today. Master Yuan Jing's contribution was great, but it was not the greatest, and it was not his contribution alone. Han Yu knew that he had made a slip of the tongue, so he immediately apologized solemnly. Master, do you think highly of the Lord? Han Yu noticed that Master Yuan Jing addressed Jiang Pengji respectfully. Chapter 12:27. The two of them talked for a while more. Master Yuan Jing looked tired, and Han Yu took the initiative to leave. Rest early, Master. I will visit again tomorrow, Master Yuan Jing said. The war has just ended. You must be busy. Don't worry about an old man like me. You can go about your business. He asked Tang Yao to see Han Yu off. He washed up and got ready to rest. However, it was destined to be a restless night. The guard at the corner door told him that there was a guest outside. What kind of mysterious guest is this? Master Yuan Jing frowned. He didn't go directly to the front door. Instead, he went to the corner door sneakily. The guard took out an object and handed it to Master Yuan Jing. Master Yuan Jing's pupil shrank after he saw it. Master Yuan Jing turned his wrist and held the object tightly in his palm. His knuckles turned blue because of the force. Ask that person to wait for me in the study. Let him in quietly. Don't disturb the others. Master Yuan Jing's expression was a little strange. After the gatekeeper left, he released his clenched fist and revealed a jade guanyin. The jade was cold. There was a tinge of blue in the green. The green was pure and strong. In the eyes of the common people, this kind of jade was not expensive. No matter how good the quality was, it couldn't be compared to other famous jade. The aristocrats would never play with this kind of cheap stuff. But Master Yuan Jing knew that this kind of jade was called jade. It was said that it was the most expensive and rare imperial jade. He had learned about jadeite thanks to a young friend he had made despite the age gap. Gu Min, he murmured. Jade was very rare. It was produced in the southwest border. The local people didn't pay much attention to it. They wouldn't waste manpower to transport it to the 5 countries in the Central Plains. Only one person was interested. He happily played with the jadeite and secretly collected a lot of treasures. You don't understand. This thing will be rare in the future. If I collect it now, the future generations will definitely thank me. Only Gu Min would use jade to carve a jade Buddha. Who was the guest outside? When the guest was secretly brought in, Master Yuan Jing's eyes suddenly became sharp. He stared at the person. Judging by the figure, the person was a teenager. His footsteps were heavy and messy. He probably didn't know any martial arts. The person closed the door of the study and turned to Master Yuan Jing. He took off his wide hood as he walked. A delicate face was revealed after the hood was taken off. The noble aura he exuded made him look like a pampered and spoiled son of an aristocratic family. My name is Lu Zhao, Master Yuanjing. Lu Zhao. Master Yuanjing's expression didn't change, but he understood. The person who came with the Jade Buddha was most likely a descendant of Gumin. Although Lu Zhao was the son of a concubine, his real identity was the legitimate son of Gumin and Lu Shi. Master Yuanjing faked a smile and said, "Why are you visiting me so late at night?" For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and he looked at Lu Zhao with a measuring and scrutinizing gaze. As smart as he was, he could not think of the reason why Lu Zhao would look for him in the middle of the night. He was even more unwilling to think of a conspiracy theory. "It is," Master Lu said. "Hey, Master Yuanjing." "Master." Lu Zhao's expression was serious and his eyes were bright. There wasn't the slightest bit of frivolity in them. He said, "This matter is of great importance. I hope that you won't deny it." Master Yuanjing said, "Tell me. For the sake of your mother, I will do my best to help you." He didn't say anything. If Lu Zhao wanted to seize power, he wouldn't help him. If it was something else, of course, anything that Gu Min's family got involved with was not a small matter. Lu Zhao said, "Master, do you know that Lu Shi is not the real Lu Shi?" Master Yuanjing said calmly, "I know, but so what? Do you want me to get rid of her?" She was quite capable. Monk Liaoshen could see it. Of course, he could see that Jiang Pengji was extraordinary. Although reincarnating in another person's body was quite scary, it was nothing to a fraud of his level. Wei Si's attitude and reaction were the key to his trust in Jiang Pengji. He still remembered the first time he met Gu Min and the world she described. But only Lu Shi could create such a magnificent and beautiful world. No, it should be said that he had replaced Lu Shi as an otherworldly person. If Lu Zhao wanted to go against Lu Shi, Master Yuanjing wouldn't help him, even if he was the son of an old friend. Lu Zhao shook his head and said in a low voice, "I've never had such a thought. She's my sister, and I really treat her as my sister. According to my dead mother, she's related to the fate of the world. She can't be touched, but I know who wants to touch her." Master Yuanjing was surprised. "Then why did you come today?" "It's very important to me to touch my sister's people," Lu Zhao said. "I suspect that my father, Lu Shi, has been possessed by a villain. He's plotting something big. My real sister, Lu Shi, is missing. I'm here today to ask if there's a plan that satisfies both sides." Lu Zhao was greedy. He wanted to protect everyone. Master Yuanjing's face darkened. He looked at Lu Zhao with a complicated gaze. Lu Zhao looked like Gu Min. His personality was similar. The world is the game, and the people are the pawns. You and I are pawns, but the person playing the game is the general. It's better if you don't get involved, Master Yuanjing said solemnly. Mr. Yuanjing said solemnly, "You saw what happened to the last person who tried to turn things around." Lu Zhao's body trembled. His eyes widened. Master Yuanjing heaved a long sigh. He could not help but reminisce. The world was the game, and the people were the pawns. How God cared for the people. It allowed an otherworldly person to support the dark world and lead everything in the best direction. How cruel and heartless it was. It generously helped the people, but it was stingy and ignored a mother's smallest wish. Chunin, I beg you to think of a way. Can't you have the best of both worlds? The beautiful woman held the baby girl in her arms and cried to him. Her bloodshot eyes were swollen and full of despair. I can't have my cake and eat it too. There's nothing I can do. As soon as Master Yuanjing said that, the woman cried uncontrollably. Knowing that there was a complete soul in her daughter's body, the woman's first reaction was not to be ecstatic. Instead, she was anxious and on the verge of losing control of her emotions. She knew that her daughter had dementia and no soul. In the future, this body would welcome a powerful soul and obtain a new life in the truest sense. What was the result? Her daughter was born with a complete soul. This meant that this daughter was a new life, and she was Gu Min's daughter. How could she accept that after she raised her daughter for 12 years, Her body was occupied by another destined soul. That was her daughter. If she did not do that, the Jiang dynasty that should have been established would no longer exist, and the chaotic world that should have ended early would have continued. If the chaotic world continued, there would be countless lonely souls and wild ghosts. Even if the world was divided and united, the dynasty that was established was not the Jiang dynasty. Even if history would slowly develop, how long would it take to truly enter the developed modern era? 500 years or 1,000 years? The Jiang dynasty only used 300 years. When the Jiang dynasty stood at the top of the world, other places were still backward and barren. There were endless wars, and the people were ignorant and ridiculous. If the butterfly had the Jiang dynasty, there would be many more innocent souls. Chapter 1228. Gumin could not handle it, and neither could Lu Zhao. The former had already paid the price with his life. If the latter still wanted a challenge, he would probably end up the same way. Master Yuanjing's words made Lu Zhao look disappointed. His delicate brows were tainted with a tinge of darkness, as if his spirit had been sucked away. Looking at the face that resembled his old friend, Master Yuanjing's heart softened a little. You can try to trust Lu Shi. According to my observation, he is not someone who would kill indiscriminately without principles. He has a strong heart, Lu Zhao said blankly. There are similar words in my dead mother's handwriting. Of course I trust her, but she and my father, Lu Shi, are not the same kind of people. They both have their own plans. They obviously want to kill each other, but when they meet, they are kind and filial. I can't see any flaws. I'm also puzzled. What other plans do they have in their heads? The premise of trust is honesty. His dead mother, Gu Min, and Master Yuanjing both said that Jiang Pengji was trustworthy, but she said nothing. Lu Zhao did not feel safe. He trusted Jiang Pengji, but he would not be 100% honest. He still left some leeway. No matter what they are planning, did they involve Lang Jun? Master Yuanjing tried to enlighten him. My sister did not do anything, but my father. Lu Zhao secretly gritted his teeth. A few months ago, my father planned to be a matchmaker for me to marry a hunter's daughter. I received news that the hunter's daughter is most likely the body that the real sister, Lu Shi's soul, resides in. If I marry her, isn't it going against human relations? In a panic, I could only beg concubine Dai to escape Chongzhou overnight. After thinking about it, it seemed that everything was not right. After careful investigation, I realized that there was no hunter's daughter. My previous speculations were all wrong. It was obviously a bait thrown by someone else. I exposed my identity carelessly. I'm afraid my life is on the line. Lu Zhao fleeing Chongzhou in the middle of the night was not a rational choice. Instead, he exposed himself. However, there was no turning back. He had no choice but to run to the front line to seek Jiang Pengji's protection. After saying that, Lu Zhao rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. At such a young age, he had to bear such a heavy burden and responsibility that did not belong to him. Master Yuanjing was surprised to hear that. He asked Lu Zhao about the details of Lu Shi and remained silent for a while. Lu Zhao asked nervously, "Sir, is there anything wrong?" There seems to be nothing wrong with this." Master Yuanjing regained his senses and waved his hand. "There are some things that I can't tell you in detail. I'm not trying to hide it, but I'm afraid that the more you know, the more dangerous it will be. To be precise, you're the only child left of your mother. Why don't you stay out of it, or ask Lu Shi for protection to ensure that you have a night of peace?" If she knew about this in the underworld, she would be happy. Although Lu Zhao was very smart, his education could not keep up. No matter how talented he was, he had wasted a lot of his talent. If he had been more careful, he would not have fallen for Lu Shi's trick. It was too late to say anything now. "But," Lu Zhao said hesitantly, "if I stay out of it, what about father and sister?" The father and sister, he was referring to were Lu Shi and the real Lu Shi. Because of Gumin's notes and speculation, Lu Zhao suspected that Lu Shi had been possessed. He did not know that there were other inside stories. After all, the whole family was full of demons. As the only normal person, Lu Zhao was under a lot of pressure. It was understandable that he did not consider everything carefully. My mother's wish was to protect them when she was alive. I don't want to go against her will. Although Lu Zhao liked to live in a corner, his personality was very similar to Gu Min's. He treated his family with extraordinary enthusiasm. Master Yuan Jing said, "You're really stubborn. Even if it means death, you're not afraid?" Lu Zhao shivered. His red lips became pale and dry. Of course I'm not afraid." The Lu Zhao in front of him seemed to overlap with the woman from decades ago. "Chunin, you can call me greedy or stupid, but I want both. This daughter is my lifeblood. I can't bear to lose her. But I also don't want history to change because of me. I can't be a sinner. I'm sure I can find the best of both worlds." In the end, Gu Min lost her life because of her greed. Betting on everything did not change a little. Master Yuan Jing did not know how she died, but it was definitely not as simple as an illness. After so many years, he did not suspect Lu Shi. After all, after Gu Min's death, he went to Hu County and experienced dangerous situations. Now it seemed everyone seemed to be hiding deep. Lu Zhao left Master Yuan Jing's residence with disappointment. He put on his hood again to cover his face and sneaked out from the corner door. He did not dare to light a lamp. It would be bad if he was discovered. But just as he went around the intersection, a slender black shadow came into view. The person was holding a long knife. He was scared out of his wits. Jiang Pengji sneered and said sarcastically, "You're so timid. How dare you go out in the middle of the night?" Lu Zhao heard the familiar voice. His squatting posture stiffened with his hands on his head. Sis. This time, not only was Lu Zhao scared out of his wits, he almost forgot how to speak human language. "Go home. Although there is no curfew in the city, it's not safe for you to be outside alone." Jiang Pengji held the war god's sword in her left hand. She put her right hand on her waist and leaned against the wall. She leaned forward a few degrees toward Lu Zhao. Lu Zhao stood up with weak legs. He glanced at the war god's sword, afraid that the blade would kiss his neck in the next second. Lu Zhao walked 2 steps behind her like a little wife. He lowered his head and looked up from time to time to see Jiang Pengji's back. "That's sister. I didn't mean anything bad by looking for Master Yuan Jing," Jiang Pengji snorted. "I know. If you dare to reveal any of your ambitions, Master Yuan Jing will look for me." Although Master Yuan Jing did not make a clear statement, he was indeed on Jiang Pengji's side. Because in this world, only Jiang Pengji could help Master Yuan Jing practice his way. Lu Zhao cannot do it. If Lu Zhao was really ambitious, he would not be able to come up with a more valuable bargaining chip. He would not be able to persuade Master Yuan Jing to change sides. He would even expose himself. Jiang Pengji also believed that Lu Zhao would not do such a stupid thing. "Sister." Lu Zhao remembered what Master Yuan Jing and his late mother Gu Min said. He took a deep breath and asked, "I want to ask a favor of you." Jiang Pengji smiled. "I refuse." Lu Zhao choked. "Why?" "Sister, you haven't heard me out. I'm easy to talk to. As long as my life, dignity, and principles are not violated, everything is negotiable. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about." Lu Zhao shut his mouth. He looked a little embarrassed. Jiang Pengji pressed her hand on his head and smiled. "Why are you so depressed? Come, smile for me." Lu Zhao forced a smile that was uglier than crying. "Don't think too much. Maybe the thing you want is not as bad as you think." Chapter 1229. Lu Zhao was deep in thought, but he did not dare to expect too much. Jiang Pengji did not explain further. After all, it was enough for her to be clear about many things. The more people who knew, the easier it was for things to go awry. Although Lu Zhao was clever, he was still too inexperienced. Who knew if he would ruin her plans in a moment of impulse? "Okay, let's go home." "Oh, go home." Jiang Pengji patted his head. She smiled warmly. If Lu Zhao dared to summon the courage to look straight at her, he would have realized that Jiang Pengji's eyes were filled with warmth. It was not a simple perfunctory act. The siblings put their arms around each other's shoulders. Jiang Pengji turned her head and glanced at Lu Zhao, who was only a little taller than her. In this era, Lu Zhao was not considered short. At least he was above average. He was as tall as a pine tree. However, in Jiang Pengji's eyes, he could only be considered petite. "Zhao, You rejected the marriage proposed by father. Do you have any thoughts? Sister, why did you suddenly mention this? Parents' orders and matchmakers' words. Marriage has always been decided this way. How can I make my own decisions? Lu Zhao was startled. He probed, I'm not asking for much. As long as she's good-looking and has a good personality. The most important thing was that she had to be a normal person. Important things had to be repeated 3 times. Lu Zhao did not want the person by his side to be a demon who had been possessed, a monster who was born with knowledge, or something else. It was too scary. As long as she was a normal person, he would not be picky even if she was ugly, stupid, or had a lower family background. Jiang Pengji frowned. Although marriage is decided by the elders, you are the one who will spend a lifetime with her. To put it crudely, only your own feet will know if the shoes fit. The most important thing is that you like her. Only after marriage can there be harmony. Lu Zhao was still an underage youth. Even if he was clever, his temperament was still somewhat reserved. His cheeks were slightly flushed, and his expression was somewhat unnatural. It's not that I want to decline, but I really haven't seen many. How can I like her? If it was possible, Lu Zhao really wanted to be single for the rest of his life. It was fine if his wife was obedient, but if she was restless and urged him to fight for power or play tricks in secret, wouldn't that be harming him? It was better not to marry such a troublesome wife. Jiang Pengji frowned and said, there really aren't many decent families in Wanzhou. Why don't I go back and ask Huayu if there are any women of suitable age in the Feng clan? You're not young anymore. You'll be crowned in a year or 2. You can't not have a marriage. Lu Zhao was shocked. Did his sister mean to make the Feng family's wife? Sister, I'm still young. Why don't you let me stay for 2 more years? Lu Zhao smiled and shamelessly begged for mercy, but in his heart, his palms were sweating. Letting the Feng family become the Yu family was the same as wanting him to die faster. If I get married, how can I find an excuse to ask elder sister for a red seal during festivals? This little brother doesn't have anything of value. It's already difficult for me to support myself, let alone a family. Lu Zhao racked his brains, wanting to decline. I'm very poor now. Every day, I'm waiting for you to give me a big red seal to help me. Lu Zhao refused to give in. He shamelessly asked Jiang Pengji for this year's red seal gift in advance. It's almost New Year's Eve. Why don't you reward me first? Jiang Pengji was helpless against Lu Zhao. Judging from his words and actions, Lu Zhao's desire to live was extraordinarily strong. If he was allowed to live, he could live until the end of time. If he cherished his life so much, why couldn't he think of intervening in a situation he shouldn't have? Okay. We won a few battles this year. Our income has increased a lot. Your sister isn't stingy. The red seal I gave you is not small. Jiang Pengji put her hand on Lu Zhao's shoulder and sent him back to her mansion. Lu Zhao didn't have a family and career. He didn't have a house in Wanzhou, so naturally, he could only squeeze in with her. Jiang Pengji asked someone to prepare supper for Lu Zhao so that he could eat before going to sleep. Where's elder sister? Lu Zhao asked her. Tens of thousands of troops have been fighting a war for 2 years. There's still many things to deal with. I'll be busy for a while, Jiang Pengji said matter-of-factly. If you handle these things well, the people under your rule will have a good new year. Don't worry about it, Zhao. Remember to sleep early. Lu Zhao stood in the corridor and listened to Jiang Pengji's words. His wide hood was piled on his shoulders, casting a large shadow. The candlelight there was not bright. Half of Lu Zhao's face was hidden in the shadows. He watched Jiang Pengji leave with a complicated expression. His eyes were filled with unfathomable thoughts. At some point, he sincerely wished that this person was his sister. As her younger brother, he could be proud of her. However, he knew very well that this was just his wishful thinking. Lu Zhao fell asleep with his mind full of thoughts. He didn't know that his hard-working model sister had jumped into Wei Si's mansion with a basket of documents. She held a pen in her mouth and hung upside down under the eaves of the bedroom like a bat. She raised her hand and knocked on the window. Dong, dong, dong. The crisp sound was especially clear in the dark night. After a while, 2 candles lit up in the pitch-black room. Wei Si was carrying one of them as he limped towards the window. Creak. Wei Si raised his hand and opened the window a crack. Jiang Pengji's upside-down face suddenly came into view. Wei Si was speechless. I don't have the energy to work overtime and stay up late alone. Jiang Pengji first put the basket on the ground, then flipped over and leaped into Wei Si's room through the window. She then turned around and carried the basket in. I saw that your walking posture was strange. What's wrong with you? Jiang Pengji talked on and on, not giving Wei Si any room to react. I'm fine. Wei Si sighed softly and limped into the room. He raised his hand and closed the window. What was it like to have a master with superb martial arts skills? Wei Si felt that she would appear in front of him at any time, any place, and under any circumstances. She could stimulate him at any time and any place. Jiang Pengji carried the basket and looked down at Wei Si's feet. Only then did she realize that there was a lump of black hanging on one of his legs. Ying. It seemed to have noticed Jiang Pengji's line of sight. The lump of shadow turned its large face and stared at her with its black pearl-like watery eyes. It made two sounds from its mouth. It used its claws to hug Wei Si's thigh and calf, putting the weight of its entire body on this leg. It was probably a little heavy. Wei Si could only rely on shifting when he walked, so his walking posture was a little limping. Jiang Pengji said, You haven't fed it to death yet. She had not bothered with it since she threw it to Wei Si. She thought that it had long been stolen and roasted by some greedy soldier. Wei Si said, This is the young master appointed by the Lord. How would I dare to neglect it? It was Jiang Pengji's turn to be dumbfounded. When did she appoint a panda as the young master? Chapter 1230. When he said this, Wei Si's eyes sparkled with a smile, like the scattered stars in the Milky Way. Jiang Pengji clicked her tongue. She lifted the little thing up with one hand. It was obedient and timid. Its big face drooped, its semicircular ears moved, and it blinked pitifully at Jiang Pengji. I've been raising it for a while. Why is it still so big? She weighed in her hand. It was heavier than before, but according to the growth pattern of an iron-eating beast, it did not make sense. Wei Si said, I've asked an experienced beast officer to take a look. It's very healthy. Healthy? Jiang Pengji said, TSK. It's a little thing of unknown origin. It's normal for it to not grow up. It's convenient for you to keep it. An adult iron-eating beast was almost as tall as a human when it stood up. It was also heavy and had a fierce temperament. It was not safe for Wei Si to keep it. If it did not grow up and maintained its current appearance, there was no harm in keeping it. Jiang Pengji put it in the basket on her back. The little thing lay on the edge of the basket and poked half its head out to observe secretly. Wei Si took the initiative to help Jiang Pengji categorize the documents so that she could deal with them. With such cooperation, the documents that would have taken most of the night were completed in 2 hours. Jiang Pengji put down her pen and shook her sore wrist. After working for so long, her eyes were sore and her stomach was hungry. It would be wonderful if a delicious meal appeared at this time. As she was thinking, the fragrance of eggs wafted into her nose. When did Zixiao go out? Jiang Pengji looked up and saw Wei Si holding a lantern in one hand and a bowl of egg custard with the fragrance of eggs in the other. Smelling the fragrance of the food, her mouth secreted saliva of desire. Zixiao knows me well. I'm starving. Wei Si put down the plate. I saw that you were too engrossed in your work just now, so I did not disturb you. I borrowed the small kitchen in the courtyard to make some dinner. Under the iron-eating beast's eager gaze, Jiang Pengji finished the bowl of egg custard in no time. Zixiao's culinary skills are too good. I really want to marry you soon. Jiang Pengji mumbled and licked her lips as if she had not had enough. Wei Si ignored this sentence and said, It's getting late. My lord should go back. Jiang Pengji wiped her mouth with a handkerchief and rolled onto Wei Si's bed like a rascal. The iron-eating beast that was squatting in the basket also crawled out clumsily. It twisted its plump buttocks and rubbed against Jiang Pengji bit by bit. Jiang Pengji raised her arms and hugged it. She hugged the iron-eating beast with her left hand and lifted a corner of the blanket with her right hand. She patted the other side of the bed towards Wei Si. Her eyes were dark and bright, making Wei Si's ears burn. Wei Si sighed and tightened his pajamas. He slowly moved to the bed and lay down stiffly. Zixiao's body is much better now. In the past, he always felt like a popsicle when he was in bed. Now he finally has some warmth. Jiang Pengji rubbed her leg against Wei Si's calf. If Wei Si was a moving refrigerator, then she would be a stove that bounced around everywhere. For Wei Si, he could not warm up his bed for a long time, but she could warm him up by lying down for a while. When Jiang Pengji's bare feet touched his underwear, the temperature almost scalded him. "My lord," Jiang Pengji said, "Sigh, Zixiao, you're really a gentleman." The saints also said that appetite and lust are part of human nature. It's normal for men and women to desire the opposite sex at a certain age. I see that Zixiao doesn't have a wife or a boy toy in his backyard. If you have feelings for him, do you still need to rely on yourself? Wei Si's eyes were focused on his nose, and his nose was focused on his heart. He had the posture of an old monk in meditation. He lay flat on the side of the bed in the standard posture and did not move an inch. Jiang Pengji sighed in her heart. Sometimes, she could not help but doubt her own judgment. Which man could remain calm and unruffled in the face of a woman's provocation? Luxiaoyi? That did not exist. Jiang Pengji could not help but feel her hand down. Wei Si was so scared that his face turned red. "My lord," Jiang Pengji said innocently, "I'm worried about your body." Wei Si was speechless. He already had 2 children in his previous life. There was nothing to worry about. Although Wei Si looked relaxed, he actually used a great deal of willpower to restrain himself. He said, "You still have government affairs early tomorrow morning. My lord, you should rest early and recuperate." Jiang Pengji secretly rolled her eyes. Sometimes, she wished that she was not a nuisance and did not have to abide by the tens of thousands of federal rules and regulations. Delicious food was close at hand. She could eat it and chew it into pieces if she opened her mouth, but she could not do it because of her principles. Yes, sleep. She felt that maybe Wei Si did not hold back and she was going to break her own principles. Jiang Pengji secretly carried a basket of documents back to the backyard of the government office at dawn. She pretended to have just woken up and called the maid in to freshen up. While eating breakfast, Jiang Pengji turned on the live stream room on time. The bullet screen was full of "Good morning." Jiang Pengji pushed the door open. The golden sunlight splashed on the ground and shone on people, making them feel at ease. "Very good. Continue to be busy and try to get your annual leave as soon as possible." Jiang Pengji cheered herself on. The civil and military officials in the tent looked disinterested, but Han Yu, Xie and Qin Gong solemnly answered yes. "Haha, annual leave? That did not exist." Feng Zhen, Yang Si, and the other old foxes had long faces. They yawned from time to time as if they lacked sleep and overused their kidneys. Qiguan Rang also had heavy dark circles under his eyes, but he held a fan to cover half of his face when he wanted to yawn. Feng Jin and Suku were also complaining incessantly. As the members who stayed behind to guard the rear, their tasks were not light. Not only did they have to maintain the supply of logistics on the battlefield, but they also had to take care of the development and construction of the various territories. Everything was finally on the right track, but when the Lord came back, they were buried alive by government affairs. Speaking of which, couldn't the Lord spend the new year outside? Why did she have to come back? Suku's eyes were filled with silence. He had been with the Lord for almost 10 years. Since the earthquake in Dongqing, he had never enjoyed the taste of annual leave. Everyone else was having a reunion and eating their New Year's Eve dinner. He could only quickly eat 2 mouthfuls of rice and continue to be busy. What a *****. There was no such thing as an annual leave. Han Yu, who did not know what was going on, rubbed his palms together. Xie and Qin Gong were also eager to try. The other feudal lords chose spring and autumn to train their troops, but Jiang Pengji was different. Most of the training was concentrated in winter and summer. In winter and summer, there was no rest in the military camp. The training would also enter a high-intensity state. Xie and Qin Gong, the two newly surrendered generals, could take the opportunity to learn more about the unfamiliar military camp system. It would be convenient for them to lead the troops in the future. Qin Gong would lead the troops to Zhe County after the new year in Wanzhou. They would be stationed there for long-term training. According to the current situation, when Jiang Pengji attacked Huangsong, she would have to transfer the troops from Zhe County and Hu County. Qin Gong had a heavy task. He had to put in more effort to prepare. As the New Year's Eve approached, the atmosphere in Wanzhou and other places gradually became more festive. Red silk red lanterns were hung in front of every house. The lively atmosphere warmed the whole winter day. The students of the Golden Scale Academy wore blue and white uniforms with bright red warm coats over their heads. Their little faces were red from the cold wind. "Father, why are you here?" Chapter 12:31. Feng Yi looked at his father calmly. His expression was slightly embarrassed, as if he was hesitating about something important. "Father, I only asked for 15 minutes of leave from the headmaster. If you have something to say, please say it quickly to avoid any delays." Addicted to learning, unable to extricate himself, a life without learning was a waste. Feng Yi didn't like to waste precious time on meaningless things. Feng Zhan said, "Isn't the academy going to have its annual vacation? As far as I know, there's nothing for you to learn these days." Feng Yi lifted his eyelids slightly, his tone as calm as ever. "Reviewing the old to learn the new, I want to take advantage of this annual vacation to consolidate the knowledge I have learned this year. Only by stabilizing my foundation can I improve further." Feng Yi said, "Also, I secretly borrowed the textbooks for next year from the headmaster. The knowledge in the books is difficult, and I need to spend a lot of energy to read them. Father, if there's nothing important, I'll take my leave first. There's still time to discuss unimportant matters after school." Feng Zhan was speechless. Everything that should and shouldn't be said had been said by this kid. Once again, he doubted whether Feng Yi was his own son. How does this serious look like him at all? Feng Zhan didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt like his authority as the head of the family was being greatly challenged. Seeing that Feng Yi was about to get up and leave after bowing, Feng Zhan quickly reached out and grabbed Feng Yi's arm. "There really is something. This matter concerns my marriage. Do you think it's important?" Feng Yi lifted his eyelids, his eyes filled with one sentence. After holding in for so long, just to say a few useless words, Feng Yi said, "Father, you're in the prime of your life, but your backyard is empty. I think we should find a family and add a mistress." Feng Zhan already knew that his son was on the same page as him, but he was still worried because he didn't hear it with his own ears. Feng Yi was his only child for many years. He was stubborn and different from other youths his age. This child had his own ideas, and Feng Zhan had high hopes for him. Feng Zhan didn't want to raise his child into a yes man, and he didn't want Feng Yi to be his subordinate. He wanted to know Feng Yi's attitude on some important family matters. But knowing was one thing, but his son was so understanding that he was so touched that he almost cried. As expected of his biological son, he knew how to dote on his father. After Feng Yi finished speaking, she turned around again. Feng Zhan hurriedly pulled her back. "Aren't you going to ask who it is? The 3 letters and 6 rights should be discussed in detail. I don't have an elder by my side, so I can only discuss it with you." In another 2 years, Feng Yi would reach the age of marriage and could be considered half an adult. Feng Yi asked, "Is this father's idea or concubine Xiu's?" Feng Zhan was stunned for a moment. He, who had always been shameless, was suddenly exposed by his own son. He blushed with embarrassment. "How did you know it was Xion Yangzi?" Feng Zhan asked. Feng Yi replied, "Father's hobby is very unique. How come I don't even know this?" No matter the age of men, they all seemed to like fresh and tender women. Only her father's taste was unique. There are thousands of beauties in the world, but he only loved mature and beautiful mature women. This was probably a form of devotion. Ever since Wan Xiao moved into the manor, Feng Zhan's private life had become a lot more restrained. Since he was busy with work, he didn't have much fun. In Feng Zhen's own words, there was a guest of the opposite sex living in his manor. As the host, he couldn't be too unrestrained and ruin the other person's reputation. Ha! His excuse was dignified, but he didn't believe a word of it. If Feng Zhen really didn't like it, he wouldn't have written a letter to He asking him to take care of Wan Xiao. He took the opportunity to let Wan Xiao stay in the manor's guest courtyard. Wasn't it also because of Feng Zhen's hint? Therefore, he wasn't surprised that Wan Xiao would become the next mistress of the Feng Manor. If there was a surprise, it would probably be that Feng Zhen had been well-behaved for more than a year and didn't overstep his boundaries with Wan Xiao. The story of Feng Zhen and Wan Xiao was like a rat guarding a rice jar. In the end, it grew to love the white rice in the jar. Feng Zhen's face was burning after his son mercilessly exposed him. He said, "This was my idea." Xiao Nyangzi agreed, but she felt that she needed to ask for your opinion. If that's the case, pick an auspicious day after the new year and get this done. He said naturally. Time is a bit tight, so Lady Xiao will have to suffer. I will go back to the manor after school to check the storeroom. The 3 scholarly documents and 6 rituals must be complete. Feng Zhen was speechless. Was this a son or an ancestor? I have observed Lady Xiao for a long time. She has a good temperament. There is no need to worry that anything will go wrong in handing the manor over to her, Feng said. Marriage is a big deal. Neither party can be wronged. Since Lady Xiao and father have the intention to marry, father should respect her. Before the wedding, let Lady Xiao move out of the guest courtyard and choose a house outside as her maiden home. If Mistress Xiao were to marry out of the mansion and then marry back into the mansion, it would be somewhat improper for outsiders to see. I heard that Mistress Xiao and the Duke of Lanting used to be from the same hometown. Father also has some face in front of the Duke of Lanting. It would be better to ask for a favor and let the Duke of Lanting act as a matchmaker. Feng Zhen was speechless. He asked again. Lady Xiao's status is special, and she is remarried. I'm afraid her dowry will not be enough. Father, do you want to add some privately? After all, there was the step of showing the dowry to the bride. This was related to the bride's pride. The dowry of noble ladies was accumulated for birth. Wan Xiao's background was not weak, so her dowry was naturally rich. However, Wan Xiao followed her ex-husband to Garhanchang Pass. Most of her dowry was lost in the chaos of war. She later found some, but it was only the tip of the iceberg. Even if it was a second marriage, she had to have what she needed. Outsiders could not laugh at the bride. Feng Zhen's mouth twitched a few times. He couldn't force out a word. He just had to sit down and listen to his son's arrangements. Feng thought for a while and felt that there were still many things that had not been arranged. According to normal procedures, the couple had to prepare for marriage for a year or half a year. However, this was a special time. There would be a war after the beginning of spring or the autumn harvest. It was impossible to prepare slowly. Of course, I have to add, Feng Zhen's net worth was not small. After all, Jiang Pengji was not a stingy lord. Every time there was a great victory, she would plunder the enemy's property. She would always give away some money. In addition, there were many profitable businesses in Feng Zhen's manor. After a few years of accumulation, not only had they made up for their previous losses, but they had also accumulated a large sum of money. It would not be a problem to make a decent dowry. Feng Zhen said, however, there is no need to go through the public accounts. Just take it from my private treasury. He was the eldest son of the legal wife. The majority of the family property must be left to him. He could not let his son suffer just to marry a wife. Chapter 1232. Feng Zhen thought his joke was humorous, but his son gave him a cold stare. Father, be careful with your words. Changsheng is still young. What does she know? Feng Zhen muttered, you speak as if you know a lot. Do you want me to take you to broaden your horizons? His son had already had a dream leak. There was no harm in knowing some things in advance. If the boy had a dream leak, it meant that he would have the ability to carry on the family line. Jokes aside, Feng Zhen knew that his son had been weak since young. If he really wanted to marry and have children, he would have to wait until he was 20 years old. Feng said, Father, Feng replied. What? 15 minutes are up. I will take my leave first. We will discuss other matters in detail when we return to the manor. With that, Feng Yi stood up and left, leaving Feng Zhen with a cool and indifferent back. Feng Zhen was speechless. Asterisk, 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 this is definitely not my own son. Feng Yi walked back to the classroom with light steps. His expression was still calm, and one could faintly see his future glory. He walked through the long corridor. The short pine trees planted in the academy were covered with a layer of snow. A few figures in blue and white school uniforms sat or leaned against the rockery, benches, and long tables. They held books made of bamboo slips or bamboo paper in their hands. The crisp sound of reading floated into his ears. Every time he saw such a scene, Feng Yi's mood would jump, as if his body was light. He pushed open the paper door of the classroom, bent over, and changed into clean socks and wooden clogs. He walked to his seat and sat down. Not long after he sat down, a figure also sneaked into the classroom. Why is Uncle Feng looking for you? Changxing opened her textbook to cover her face. On the surface, she sat upright, but she was secretly whispering to Feng Yi. Father and Lady Xiu's wedding is near, Feng Yi replied. Changxing pouted and asked, Is it near? Feng Yi said, When they get married, Lady Xiu will be the mistress. I will call her mother. Changxing was about half a size younger than Feng Yi. No matter how smart and sensible she was, there were many things that she could not understand. But she is not your mother. Is there another mother? Feng Yi said, Yes, but father is more important. Changxing blinked, her eyes filled with confusion. Feng Yi said, My mother passed away many years ago, and my father isn't that old either. Why get married at a young age? Don't tell me I'm going to leave my father alone at home. While he was still young, he should find someone to accompany him as soon as possible so that he wouldn't have anyone to take care of him in his later years. No matter how considerate their children are, they still have another family to take care of, and they're not as considerate as their wives. Now that father is settled down, I can also put one of my worries to rest. Changxing was confused. He already had a mother, yet he had to find another woman to be his mother. Did he really feel good about it? She tried to imagine. If her father brought a strange woman to be her mother, she would definitely be very sad. Feng Yi saw through her thoughts. The person who will accompany me for a long time in the future will not be my father. Similarly, the person who will accompany my father will not be me. Changxing's face was bitter. Her baby fat snow-white skin was flushed. Feng Yi couldn't help but poke him, and a small part of his chubby face sunk in. He said, You'll understand when you're older. Changxing said in distress, Sigh, I don't want to understand. Brother Feng Yi can't help me understand. Feng Yi said, Okay. School ended on time. Feng Yi first sent Changxing, Sun Lan, and Qiguan Jinghui back to their respective mansions. Fortunately, the mansions were very close to each other, and the furthest was only a street away. He returned home before sunset. After returning to the mansion, Feng Yi summoned the butler to discuss his father's marriage. However, these days, I don't seem to see any interaction between the two of them. Why did father suddenly? The butler's face twitched. He didn't know if he should tell his little Lang Jun about the things of the adult world. Feng Yi saw the clues and asked, Could it be that something happened? The butler said, 2 days ago, Duke Lanting bestowed a fruit wine that was newly buried the year before last. Master has been interested in that madam for a long time, so he used this to invite Madame Wan to admire the snow. His original intention was to get closer and talk about family matters. Unexpectedly, the wine was not like ordinary rice wine or sake. It was strong and spicy and had a strong after effect. Master boasted that he would not get drunk even after drinking 1,000 cups. He didn't control himself at all and accidentally drank a little too much. For ordinary sake or rice wine, anyone with a bit of alcohol tolerance would be able to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. Although it was called wine, its alcohol content was only slightly higher than plain water. Even a woman who didn't drink could drink 1 or 2 pots. The two careless ones thought it was ordinary wine. The moon was clear, and the snow was alluring. The two of them were tipsy, and there was only a thin paper window between them. Taking advantage of the situation, they rolled together. Although it was a bit unexpected, there was no such thing as integrity in times of war. The two of them were unmarried, so it was normal for them to drive together. Wan Xiao wanted to keep this a secret, but Feng Zhen took this opportunity to bring up marriage. Wan Xiao was a widowed woman with no relatives or elders by her side, so she could decide her own marriage. Feng Zhen, on the other hand, had a son who was almost grown up. If he wanted to remarry, he had to ask for Feng Yi's opinion. After hearing this, Feng Yi's expression darkened. Ridiculous! Entering the bedroom of the opposite sex before marriage and doing such a thing that tarnished her reputation. Her father was really stupid. The butler was silent, as if he didn't hear Feng Yi scolding his father for being ridiculous. Even if Feng Zhen didn't do well, Feng Yi shouldn't belittle him in this way based on the current situation. After calming down, Feng Yi asked the butler to get Feng Zhen's private account book and the official account book. Marry her as soon as possible, or else it would be bad if someone died. The butler wasn't worried about this. Master only had a little husband after many years of marriage. Because Feng Zhen was born with a weak constitution, it affected Feng Yi. Not to mention that Feng Zhen had been taking Hanshi powder for a while. Although he quit and took good care of his body for a few years, it still affected him. Soul imprint? No way. She heard that Madame One had some problems with her body too. The chances of these two killing someone were not high. Feng Yi said, "You can't guarantee that you won't have it. A son knows his father best." Based on Feng Zhen's temper, he might do something ridiculous like sleeping in a lady's room when he finally had sex. If he didn't do it once, a few more times might do it. The butler was speechless. What the little husband said made sense. The Golden Scale Academy's annual break was about to begin. Feng Yi had a lot of time every day to prepare for his father and stepmother's marriage. He was so busy that he didn't even have time to rest, making the two people involved seem useless. Wan Xiao wasn't as thick-skinned as Feng Zhen, so she was a little embarrassed. Feng Zhen said, "Don't worry. Let him practice now so that he can marry Feng Huayu's daughter in the future. I don't have to worry about him." Wan Xiao was speechless. Chapter 1233. Reality proved that the new year after the war was not a good time. Those who were busy continued with their work. Those who had to work overtime continued to work overtime. Only Feng Zhen stood out among the crowd. Yang Si slammed the table loudly. He was so angry that his beard was about to float. "I don't care. I want to get married and ask for leave." The entire government office was almost drowned in thick bamboo slips. People had to walk on tiptoes. Everyone was in dire straits. Feng Zhen, the old and frivolous fellow, had gone to busy himself with wedding matters after giving the Lord's slip. Why? Was he discriminating against married and unmarried people? Yang Si saw that Feng Zhen was staying at home and not busy at all. He felt unbalanced. Feng Zhen held a plate of dried fruits in one hand and a thin, long, bamboo toothpick in the other. He poked a piece and threw it into his mouth. He said leisurely, "Jing Rong, the walls have ears." As the Lord's important minister, how can you find such a lame excuse to avoid responsibility? If the Lord finds out, she will be furious and very disappointed. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture because of the small things. Yang Si was so angry that he wanted to laugh. "Zisher, do you know that deceiving the Lord is a serious crime?" Feng Zhen asked for leave with the excuse of preparing for his wedding. Jiang Pingji felt that there were no elders or relatives in Feng Zhen's family to take care of his wedding, so she simply granted him leave. Not only did she let him take this year's leave, but she also generously lightened Feng Zhen's burden and pushed the burden on others. With one less main labor force, wouldn't the burden on others be heavier? The most optimistic estimate was that many people would be busy until the morning of New Year's Eve. If they took a little more time, they would still have to stay in the study to fight after New Year's Eve dinner. The houses of Jiang Pingji's civil and military officials were close to each other. Most of them were in the central area. They were either neighbors or separated by one or two streets. Yang Si and Feng Zhen lived close to each other. The former took the time to check on the latter's preparation progress. He didn't know if he didn't care, but he was shocked when he did. Where was Feng Zhen, who was rumored to be so busy that he jumped up and down? Who was this lowly person in front of him, leisurely lying on a small couch in front of an open window, drinking sake and tasting dried fruits? Feng Zhen said he was taking leave to prepare for his wedding, but in the end, he was secretly sleeping in and hiding. If this wasn't deception, what was? In the face of Yang Xi's threat, Feng Zhen was not the least bit intimidated. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, "Zhen did not lie to my lord." Yang Xi asked, "You're resting here. Who's busy with your wedding?" Feng Zhen puffed out his chest proudly and said, "Who asked me to have such an intelligent and capable son? A son should be like this." Yang Xi, he had already been showered with dog food by Feng Zhen, and now he was showing off his son. Couldn't he show some sympathy for an older single man? Feng Zhen cheekily picked his teeth with a toothpick and said, "You are all alone. How can you understand the beauty of having a virtuous wife and a filial son?" Yang Xi immediately revealed an expression of disgust. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's time to let that Madame Wan see your virtue." How could Feng Zhen have the cheek to do such a vulgar act in front of outsiders? Feng Zhen said, "In the future, when it's fun in the bedroom, you'll naturally see it. Jing Rong, you don't understand the joys of a married couple. Yang Xi, that's damned enough?" Having successfully disgusted Yang Xi, Feng Zhen hummed a little tune. He reclined on a small couch, his outer robe slipping down to his shoulders, revealing a green Confucian robe. His hair scarf was loose, and his black hair draped over his shoulders. He propped himself up on the couch with one hand and reached for a steaming cup of wine with the other. He took a sip. At this moment, a gust of cold wind blew in from outside the window. The cold wind carried fine white snow, drifting to the top of his head in strands of hair. Auspicious snow indicates a bumper harvest. Next year will definitely be a bumper harvest, he murmured and sighed. Outside, the festive atmosphere was strong. Commoners wearing thick new winter clothes could be seen on the streets and alleys. After a few years of construction, the entire Xiangyang district had become the commercial center of Wanzhou. There was an endless stream of merchants coming and going from all over the place. The buildings in Xiangyang district were also gradually renovated and remodeled, from the original low and dilapidated wooden houses and stone houses to green-tiled wooden houses. The streets, big and small, were paved with clean and tidy stone or green bricks, wide and clean. Because of the repeated expansions and modifications of the city, the original city gate was changed to an inner city gate. Later, a gate and 2 city gates were built. In terms of prosperity, the current Xiangyang district was not inferior to the former Shangjing. The former was better than the latter. The population had expanded from the original 20,000 to 30,000 to more than 300,000. As the end of the year approached, the market was already a sea of red. The merchants and vendors on both sides of the street were enthusiastically promoting their goods. It had been snowing heavily in the past few days. The district headquarters had issued an order for all the commoners to sweep away the snow to prevent the houses from collapsing. The commoners had been maintaining this order for several years and had long gotten used to it. At first, there were outsiders who had migrated here who didn't care. In the end, a commoner passed by the commoner's house and slipped and fell, breaking his bones. The commoner was furious and sued the family to the magistrate's office. The magistrate's office sent bailiffs to inspect the snow and judge the commoner to have improperly swept away the snow. They were fined a sum of money, and the head of the household was also arrested and sent to prison for 3 days as punishment. After the heavy punishment, no one dared to violate the district headquarters' orders anymore. After a few years, sweeping the snow had also evolved into every household's winter entertainment. Yangtze passed by a certain residential alley. Separated by a courtyard wall that was taller than a person, he faintly saw a burly figure in black standing on the eaves sweeping the snow. "Isn't that General Fu?" Yangtze mumbled and hurriedly stopped the horse carriage. He tiptoed and tried to take a closer look. Fu Wang's muscles were very strong and strong. At this moment, He was wearing a short black outfit. The tight clothes were wet and stuck to his body, outlining the contours of his muscles and exposing all the advantages of his broad shoulders and narrow waist. Which man wouldn't be jealous and envious of him? He rolled his sleeves up to his elbows. The muscles on his forearms swelled and tightened due to his strength. Both his hands held a large broom specially used for sweeping snow. This doesn't seem to be General Fu's residence. Yangtze looked at the surrounding terrain and once again confirmed that he didn't remember wrongly. Go, knock on the door, and say that the master is here to visit General Fu. Fu Wang, who was in the courtyard, was also confused. He didn't have a deep friendship with Yangtze. Did the other party have to visit him in Lady Huijuan's residence? Yes, Fu Wang was currently in Huijuan's residence visiting the child and helping her sweep the snow on the roof. There were only a few old maids and maidservants in Huijuan's residence. The house was also relatively high, so it was inconvenient for them to climb up. Thus, Fu Wang volunteered. As someone who was raised by a pack of wolves, Fu Wang's style of doing things was obviously closer to that of a wolf. He didn't lack patience when waiting for prey. He would infiltrate the other party's life bit by bit, and then take them down with a thunderous force. He wasn't afraid of failure, but he was afraid of not being able to keep his cool. Chapter 1234. You're here, Master Yang? Huijun had always been concerned about Jiang Pengji's affairs. How could she not find out more about the talent she valued? She immediately asked the servant to lead Yangtze into the main hall and treat him as a VIP. Fu Wang, the wild wolf, felt jealous when he saw it. He carried a cub in each hand and strode to the main hall with strong steps, looking like the alpha wolf announcing his territory. Yangtze was speechless. He was just celebrating the new year. Who did he offend? Did they take turns to feed him dog food? Fu Wang, an uncouth man, could openly squat in the house of the imperial beauty. Would the heavens open their eyes? Yangtze roared in his heart, but he looked very calm on the surface. He said, I didn't expect this to be Lady Hui's house. Please forgive me for my sudden visit. Yangtze knew Huijun. After all, she was an unforgettable beauty, but they didn't have much contact. Ever since they left Huangshui, Huijun had concealed her identity as the Empress of Zhongzhou and changed her appearance to become a servant girl of Jiang Pengji's hometown. Later, she was released to open her own house. Yangtze vaguely heard that this young lady had been in contact with Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang of the Mo family in the carpentry workshop. It seemed that they wanted to combine the pedal-powered spinning wheel with the water-powered spinning wheel. It seemed that there was already good news about this. Even though he didn't know the details, Yangtze felt that the woman in front of him was not simple. Huijun smiled faintly and said, What are you talking about, Master Yang? It's my honor to have you visit my house. Fu Wang, who was carrying the two cubs, coughed heavily. Huijun rolled her eyes at him. It was clearly an unpleasant action, but she looked extremely flirtatious when she did it. There are still maids sweeping the snow on the roof outside. I'll go and keep an eye on them. Take your time. Yangtze looked at Huijuan's back as she left, then at Fu Wang, who was carrying the cubs and frowning. He secretly felt a toothache. If he really couldn't see the clues, he would have wasted so many years in the brothel. These two children, could they be Lady Hui and General Fu's? Fu Wang nodded and admitted it without hesitation. The more he looked at the twins in his arms, the more he liked them, especially his daughter. That charming appearance was carved from the same mold as her mother. Not only did he like her, but his neighbor, old man Xie Qian, also liked her. Come to think of it, it was strange that old man Xie Qian's granddaughter, Lin Wan, looked a little like his own daughter. If not for their different sizes, they would look more like twins. Fu Wang asked around and found out that Huijun looked very similar to Lin Wan's grandmother when she was young. It was really fate. Because of their children, the families of the two generals began to interact more, sending each other gifts during the new year. Yangtze rolled his eyes and said hesitantly, But according to what I know, that Huinyangzi seems to have become independent. After establishing a family, she became the head of the family, and the child also took her surname. Fu Wang felt a little awkward. Fu Wang said, "My surname isn't important. I don't believe in talismans anyway." He was originally a baby boy abandoned by a farmer at the border. He was raised by a she-wolf since he was young, and then he met his lifelong benefactor and adoptive father, Fu Yang. Fu Yang gave him a name and changed his surname. Only then did Fu Wang have his own name. How would he know who his original ancestor was, or what his surname was? To him, it really didn't matter what the child's surname was, as long as it was his child. Even if he had to take Huajuan's household registration, he wouldn't have much of an opinion, because he didn't have the concept of household registration or ancestral inheritance. Yang Si, this made so much sense that he was actually speechless. General Fu loves Huin Yangzi so much, it's really enviable. Fu Wang said casually, "What's there to be envious about, Mr. Yang? As long as Mr. Yang is willing to nod, how many daughters of good families would be willing to follow you?" Yang Si wasn't an old man who was left behind. He was clearly a member of the Dink clan who had no intention of starting a family. When Fu Wang said that, Yang Si's expression revealed a trace of unnaturalness. "Mr. Yang, could it be that there's something difficult to say?" Fu Wang asked carefully, as if afraid of touching on Yang Si's sore spot. Men who were unwilling to get married or take a wife most likely had Yang deficiency syndrome. "Should we find some doctors to take a look? It's not good to hide one's illness for fear of treatment." Without waiting for Yang Si to reply, Fu Wang said, "I know a few strong folk prescriptions. Would Mr. Yang like to try them?" Yang Si, looking at Fu Zhengtu's dignified appearance, tall and strong, he actually needed some strong folk prescriptions. He didn't say anything, but Fu Wang could understand. For men, some topics didn't need to be said with their mouths. They could communicate with their eyes and expressions without any obstacles. Fu Wang said, "Of course it's not me. I'm fine." Previously, there were a few deputy generals who didn't get along well with each other in bed, so I took the opportunity to listen in. Yang Si's expression became even weirder, almost turning purple. Sorry, he was in good health, so he didn't need strong folk prescriptions to liven things up. Yang Si didn't want to get married and have children, not only because his mother was a prostitute, but also because of the influence of his experiences in his youth. From the bottom of his heart, he didn't kill Zhao Yang and Din Yangzi, but he was forced to hide in the cellar and listen to them being humiliated to death. He couldn't get over this in his heart. He vaguely remembered that he quite liked Din Yangzi at that time. Even his first dream was because he dreamed of her. She was intelligent, clever, virtuous, and gentle. Yang Si even thought of waiting for her to reach the age of 15 before he proposed to her. However, when he was young, he was only moved for a moment. Now that he was in his 30s, he had thought through many things. Whether it was his mother's identity or his experiences in his youth, they had all become a part of the past. It was just that he no longer had the impulses of his youth. It was good to be single. When he was old, he would go to the nursery hall to pick a child he liked and make him his heir. It would be enough to have a filial son after his death. Fu Wang saw that Yang Si's expression didn't look good, so he said embarrassedly, "It seems that I'm misunderstood." Yang Si said, "Your prescription." When Fu Wang heard this, his ears perked up. The two children in his arms, including him, looked at Yang Si at the same time. "Si doesn't need it, but Feng Zisher, that bastard, might need it. The medicine of tigers and wolves wouldn't be able to kill that be *TCH. Yang Si was full of depression after being fed 2 rounds of dog food when he went out to the government office. He was addicted to work and eating dog food. The carriage turned into 2 alleys. Yang Si was lost in thought when the curtain of the carriage seemed to be hit by something. Cold snow was thrown into the carriage. Yang Si was splashed by the snow and instantly became furious. He hurriedly asked the coachman to stop and lifted the curtain to argue with that person. Which naughty child had a snowball fight on his carriage? After looking, he realized that there was no one in the alley. He looked at the position of the curtain and then followed the direction where the snow was thrown. Jiang Nongqin was dressed neatly and held a broom in her hand. She stood firmly on the edge of the wall. She was the one who swept the snow just now. She said weakly, "I'm sorry, I thought there was no one." Yang Si looked up at Jiang Nongqin, who was against the light. His Adam's apple rolled a few times. He teased her for some reason. "If you're really sincere, can Field Officer Jiang help me sweep the snow on the roof?" In the face of this difficulty, Jiang Nongqin's expression did not change. Of course, a man should know when to yield and when to stand tall. It was just sweeping the snow, a small matter. It was her carelessness that disturbed Yang Xi's carriage. It was not too much to compensate for sweeping the snow. Yang Xi was speechless. Chapter 1235. According to the tradition of previous years, Jiang Pengji would hold a New Year's banquet on New Year's Day. She would invite the civil and military officials under her command to have a meal together and exchange feelings. Back then, there were only 2 or 3 people in her camp. The New Year's banquet was just a simple gathering to eat barbecued meat and warm a cauldron. Now that the family business had expanded, Jiang Pengji's subordinates had also increased by quite a lot. Apart from the mainstays in the past 2 years, many middle-level talents have been selected from the Golden Scale Pavilion. Jiang Pengji naturally wanted them to attend an event like the New Year's banquet to broaden their horizons. With more people, the venue naturally had to keep up with the times and increase the area. To ensure that the New Year's banquet went smoothly, Jiang Pengji arranged seats according to the status of the guests. The mainstay could drink with her, while the slightly less talented people ate separately in the side halls. Jiang Pengji originally wanted to continue the fine tradition of the officials producing their own programs, but this suggestion was rejected by the audience in the streaming room. Lao Ciji Lianmeng. Although self-produced programs can increase the officials' participation, it's not good to do this every year. Those who have been with you for a long time know your temperament, but those middle management staff don't. If you force yourself to do so, it will easily damage your reputation. Guikai Guofeng Xiao. In my opinion, it's better to have a classification system. If an important official can drink with you, it means that their relationship with you is closer, so there's no need to be too rigid about etiquette. Since they were all on the same side, it was fine to let them perform on their own. You don't have to specially arrange singers and dancers for those who are arranged for the banquet. It's better to choose folk artists. This way, it'll be more approachable to the people. Jiang Pengji did not like spending money on singers and dancers. Such an extravagant and depraved life did not suit her style. If she had to make an exception for a group of middle-level personnel, she would not feel comfortable. The audience in the live stream room brainstormed and came up with a compromise for her. Not only could it make the subordinates more friendly to the common people, but could also clearly distinguish their status and stimulate their fighting spirit. A lord who was kind to her subordinates was not a good lord. While being kind to her subordinates, she also had to let them understand the difference in status and intimacy. Jiang Pengji had the same idea. The suggestion from the audience in the streaming room was exactly what she wanted. If that's the case, then let the theater choose a few plays that are lively, festive, and friendly to the people, Jiang Pengji added. It'd be best if it's a new show. The power of Wanzhou flourished, and the entertainment industry prospered along with the growth of the economy and population. With Jiang Pengji's permission, Wei Ci vigorously developed novelists and related industries, using entertainment methods to control public opinion. After several years of implementation, the results were remarkable. The people of Wanzhou had been ravaged by Wei Ci's great method of brainwashing through public opinion, and they had long regarded her as a god. Didn't you see that countless men and women yearned for Jiang Pengji's favor day and night? As the leader in this field, Wei Ci had to take on this task. If not for the fact that Wei Ci was an ancient person, the audience would have suspected that he was a time traveler. This kind of method was not rare in the current era of the live stream viewers, but in an ancient era where entertainment was scarce, it was terrifying. However, Wei Ci had struggled for so many years, and the entertainment industry was still thriving because of him. After a few years, not only did Jiang Pengji not have to pay for it, but Wei Ci also earned a large sum of money for Jiang Pengji's private treasury every year. In the past, no one would waste effort in this aspect, so Wei Ci's torment did not cause suspicion. Or rather, they did not think that the entertainers on the streets, the storytellers in the tea houses and taverns, a group of lowly people, could influence public opinion. They did not even dare to think about it. They disdained to deal with entertainers and despised this group of people. Naturally, they did not think that they were potentially terrifying. The previous means of public opinion was at most to make up a ballad and spread it through the mouths of hooligans, ruffians, and children. Wei Si's organized and disciplined method of criticism was a magnificent feat that had never been done before. Wei Si said, "If it's a new play, it's better to let everyone watch it together, so as to avoid favoritism." Jiang Pengji thought about it, nodded, and responded, "What you said makes sense. Pass down the instructions to let the theater prepare for the new play." The entertainment industry was gradually taking shape, and many other industries were spawned. Seeing this, Wei Si simply introduced the official theater troupe. What was a theater troupe? It was equivalent to the pear garden that the audience was familiar with, and its form was similar to actors. The entertainers acted with the novel scripts given by the officials, and at the same time, they could enjoy the basic salary given by the officials. If the people gave a lot of tips, the entertainers could also get share of the tips. Real people acted out the content of the novel, which was more interesting than the stories told by the storytellers. Every time a theater troupe set up the stage to perform, the surrounding area of 100 feet would be tightly packed with people, and it was very lively. The people of Wanzhou waited for the new play, just like the audience in the streaming room waiting for the online novel to be adapted into a movie. It was painful and happy. However, the former did not have as rich an entertainment life as the latter. The entertainment industry in Wanzhou was under the control of the officials, so the people had no choice. It was good enough that their favorite novel could be adapted into a theater, so the people ended up watching it with relish and completely forgot about themselves. Jiang Pengji was busy with government affairs while arranging the New Year's banquet. She was so busy that she had almost no time to rest. It was the first time that Han Yu, Qin Gong, and the others participated in the New Year's banquet, so they did not know many of the rules. They could only ask the experienced people in private. Those who have families bring their families, and those who don't bring their stomachs. The New Year's banquet is for fun, so there's no need to be as cautious as usual. Yang Si smiled and said, "Let's not talk about other things. The dishes of the New Year's banquet held by the Lord are different every year. I heard that there will be fruits and vegetables this year. In winter, most people ate meat or wild dried products. Vegetables and fruits were almost delusional." Fruits and vegetables? At this time of the year, Hanyu was skeptical about Yang Si's words. He had cheated Yang Si before, but who could guarantee that the narrow-minded Yang Si would not dig a trap for himself? I heard that it was Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang from the woodworking workshop who came up with it. You know that the weather in the north is cold, and the Baron Beiyuan is freezing all year round. In order to resist the severe cold, the people gathered their ideas and came up with a good idea. That's how the heating bed came about. Yang Si said, "This thing can make the room as warm as spring, and it can also make the spring and summer fruits and vegetables ripen in winter. It's a pity that it's a little expensive." Yang Si was a foodie, and he was very picky. Eating fruits and vegetables in winter was something that he dreamed of. Now that his wish had come true, he naturally raised both his hands and feet in agreement. Hanyu frowned. Not going with the flow of nature, not in season, and it's not harmful to eat them? People believed that there must be demons when something abnormal happened. Wasn't it evil that the fruits and vegetables did not ripen in the right season? Confucius once said, "Don't eat when it's not in season," which meant that they would not eat when it was not in season. Chapter 12:36. Yang Si said, "You won't die from eating them. They're all the same, it's just that the season is different. My Lord wants to do things that ordinary people can't do. Fruits and vegetables that are out of season are naturally included. Moreover, it's hot and dry after winter. Consuming too much dried meat is harmful to one's health. If there's something wrong with fruits and vegetables that can warm the Kong, it's because it's too much manpower and nothing else." Yang Si's words reminded Hanyu of what Jiang Pengji had said when she tried to recruit him. Her lord's ambition was to create a world that others couldn't imagine. What was eating fruits and vegetables that were out of season considered a big deal? Maybe it was just an appetizer. Han Yu said, "I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried that my lord will be accused of being extravagant." The Kong warming was not the first invention in Wanzhou. It was quite popular in Beiyuan. However, those who could afford it were mostly wealthy families. Ordinary people could only dream about it. With the Kong warming, the technology of the greenhouse was naturally not far behind. According to historical records, the technology had been around for hundreds of years. It was specially supplied to the royal family. Although the technology of the greenhouse could subvert the season and allow the nobles to eat fresh fruits and vegetables in the unseasonable season, the technology was too costly. There was once an emperor who thought it was too extravagant and ordered it to be banned. Over time, the technology gradually became history. Rather than saying that the people were going against the season and there must be something wrong when things are abnormal, it was better to say that the greenhouse was too extravagant. Scholars also cared about their reputation. To say that the greenhouse was too extravagant was a direct slap in the face to their immediate superior. Therefore, they took a different approach and changed their argument. "Is my lord still considered extravagant?" Yangtze laughed. "Don't worry, Wenbin. Xiaoyu said that all the expenditures for the greenhouse will be from my lord's private treasury. My lord just wants to have a good New Year's banquet, so that everyone can eat fresh fruits and vegetables in winter. It's not as serious as you think. If someone thought that the fruits and vegetables that were out of season were poisonous, then don't eat them." Anyway, Yangtze was ready to eat to his heart's content. Han Yu could only be speechless. As long as my lord was happy, the New Year's banquet was held as scheduled. Early that morning, Wei Xi dug Jiang Pengji out of her bed. The maidservant helped her change into the 9-chapter royal robe that had been prepared. Jiang Pengji wore a heavy imperial robe with 9 stripes. She ascended the gate of the inner city to offer sacrifices and pray for blessings. The crowd below the city shouted at her. 9 imperial robes, black and crimson robes, coral pendants, jade ornaments, and a sword. If it weren't for the fact that their clothes were different, the commoners would have shouted, "Long live the emperor." Even though he didn't do so, the commotion that was like a tsunami made people's blood boil and goosebumps spread all over their bodies. After the worship to the heavens, the day's celebration officially began. During the day, the market was already bustling with noise and excitement. At night, the streets and alleys were filled with people jostling each other. The lights were brightly lit like fireworks. Some were wearing costumes and walking on stilts. Some were dancing cheerfully. Some were beating gongs and drums and humming tunes. There were lantern festivals everywhere in the city. Vendors were carrying their goods and walking through the streets. Children were playing and laughing. No matter how virtuous the scholars were, they couldn't help but walk into the crowd when they saw such a lively and prosperous scene. It was very lively outside. The New Year's banquet that Jiang Pengji had carefully prepared was about to begin. The year before, there was a war. Many people spent the New Year's banquet outside. This year, her power was on another level. Jiang Pengji only needed to put on a dragon robe before she could ascend to the throne. The meaning of this New Year's banquet was particularly different. Su Ku, Qiguan Rang, and the others brought 1 or 2 family members to the designated seats. Those who had wives brought their wives, and those who didn't brought their sons, daughters, or grandchildren. If they didn't have either, well, they would come with an empty stomach like Yangtze. In this kind of formal occasion, no idiot would bring a concubine who could not even be seen in the backyard to cause trouble. Jiang Pengji sat at the table and looked down. She was instantly amused. She didn't know if she didn't look, but she was shocked when she saw it. Some of the people in her camp were married, some had children, and almost none of them were single. Feng Zhen, the prodigal son, was also going to get married after the new year. If he worked hard, the next generation in Wanzhou might be even stronger. Jiang Pengji was not only the lord, but she was also the elder of this group of children. She asked someone to distribute all the red envelopes that had been prepared in advance. It was counted as the children's New Year's money. Each red seal was filled with a nude piece of gold, which the goldsmith had made into various charmingly naive animals. which were very pleasing to the eye. The group of children, led by Feng Yi, uniformly greeted Jiang Pengji for the new year. Happy New Year! Blessings rose and fell, and many of the children stuttered. However, their childish voices were pleasing to the eye. Happy New Year! All is well. Jiang Pengji solemnly returned the greeting. A few of the older children blushed. The younger children turned their heads blankly and looked at their parents. Looking at such a joyous and friendly scene, Han Yu's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. For this New Year's banquet, he brought his wife and his eldest legitimate son. His wife was absent-minded the whole time. Although the smile on her face was flawless, the way she secretly looked at Jiang Pengji was very disrespectful. The eldest legitimate son followed the children to pay their New Year's greetings. He returned to the banquet with a thick red envelope in his hand. His cheeks were red and his eyes were filled with excitement. When he was about to speak to Han Yu, his mother, Madame Han, glared at him. The child was so scared that he shrunk his shoulders and became as quiet as a quail. Han Yu said, "Don't be rude at the New Year's banquet." Madame Han didn't even turn her head. She raised her handkerchief to cover her mouth and said, "I am restraining my son from being rude. What did I do wrong?" Han Yu said, "My lord's intention was to make everyone feel better. Madam, you don't have to restrain your child like this. Just don't be rude." He saw a few children who had received the red envelopes were laughing and chatting with their parents. It looked very warm and happy. This New Year's banquet was like a family gathering. There was no need for etiquette. Madame Han said sarcastically, "Lang Jun, you should be more cautious. If something happens in the future, even the smallest mistake will be a big one." Han Yu's eldest legitimate son looked at his parents' conversation and felt a little uneasy. Although he didn't understand what they were talking about, the atmosphere between them made him feel a little uncomfortable. Han Yu could only ignore Madame Han. According to her temperament, she wouldn't do anything out of line at the New Year's banquet anyway. If there was anything, they could talk about it after the banquet was over. The theater arranged a few lively new plays. The actors who participated in the performances were all the best actors. Everyone watched with great interest. When the atmosphere was almost hyped up, it was time for the entertainment that everyone brought. They played the guqin, danced with the sword, wrote calligraphy, recited poems, and composed poems. It was not terrible to have the same performance, but it would be embarrassing for anyone who did not perform well. Madame Han agreed with the literary talent of those people, but she was quite disdainful of their public performances. She smiled and asked Han Yu, "Doesn't Lord Lanting want to join the fun with the people?" Jiang Pengji had amazing hearing. Of course, she didn't miss the movements of Han Yu and his wife, who were sitting in the front row. Chapter 12:37. Naturally? What's that? Except for Han Yu, the rest of the people were puzzled. They couldn't figure out why their lord would suddenly say something like that. Those guys were obsessed with the performance. They were all smiling on the surface, but in their hearts, they had already insulted each other. Of course, they didn't notice the conversation between Han Yu and his wife. Han Yu was so shocked that he was sweating profusely. His heart skipped a beat and his face turned pale. Mrs. Han was also shocked. She was embarrassed, and she didn't dare to look up and meet Jiang Pengji's eyes. Han Yu's seat wasn't very far behind, but it wasn't too far in front either. He was still more than 30 meters away from Jiang Pengji. The couple deliberately lowered their voices so that no one else could hear them except the eldest son, who was sitting obediently. Mrs. Han was arrogant, but she also knew how to read people's expressions. There was a big difference between speaking ill of Jiang Pengji in private and being caught speaking ill of her behind her back. Even though Mrs. Han was experienced and had been to many banquets of the aristocratic families, she couldn't help but feel nervous at that moment. Her glib tongue seemed to be tied into a knot, and she couldn't say a word. Her forehead was covered with fine sweat. Even though she had applied rouge on her face, it still couldn't hide the panic on her face. Ever since she was a child, she had always been the center of attention in the circle of aristocratic women. Everyone flattered her and gave in to her. Her head had always been held high. But at this time, because of the few words of another woman, she was frightened to the point of sweating and trembling in fear. She was afraid, but at the same time, she was angry and resentful. However, no matter how much the aristocratic families despised Liu Shi, it couldn't change the fact that she had become the most powerful feudal lord. And she, no matter how powerful she was only powerful in the inner house. She was nothing in front of Jiang Pengji. "What's wrong with you?" Jiang Pengji didn't look at Han Yu and his wife. If she did, the group of people present would know, and Han Yu would be embarrassed. Jiang Pengji considerately helped Han Yu out. "I just remembered what Zi Xiao asked me before the New Year's banquet. He winked at me just now. Alas, he was afraid that I would break my promise to him." Wei Ci was suddenly called out, but there was no change in his expression. Instead, he smiled and continued the conversation. "Master, you can't blame me for reminding you. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, so naturally, I think about it. Today, Wei Ci had changed into a rather cheerful, warm-colored thick shirt, which diluted his original alienation. In the words of the audience in the live streaming room, Wei Ci today was very amiable and down-to-earth. He didn't know what had happened, but he was able to continue the conversation. No one suspected anything. After all, Wei Ci and Jiang Pengji's cooperation was flawless. Except for Han Yu and his wife, no one knew what was going on. On the contrary, a few civil officials sitting on the counter vaguely sensed something. After all, no matter how fast Han Yu and his wife reacted, there were still traces left behind. Qiguan Rang retracted his gaze. His brows furrowed imperceptibly. Coincidentally, his hand was empty. He looked down. His daughter had stolen his feather fan, but her hand stopped awkwardly in midair before she could retract it. "Jinghui." Qiguan Rang's thin lips opened slightly. His daughter shrunk her neck and carefully put the feather fan back into his hand. "Mother's right. This fan is my lifeblood. It can't be separated from me at all times." The snow outside had not melted yet, and the banquet was being heated by the fire. Only her father's style was different. He was holding a fan in his hand. Not only was he holding it, but he was also fanning it, mercilessly blowing away the warmth around her. If it weren't for the cold, she wouldn't have sneakily stolen her father's fan. Qiguan Rang's expression became a little awkward. He raised his hand and put the fan behind his waist. After all, it was a habit of many years. He felt uncomfortable all over if he didn't hold something in his hand. Qiguan Weisher saw his embarrassment and uneasiness, so she took the initiative to offer her hand to him. Under the cover of their wide sleeves, the couple held hands as if there was no one else around. For a moment, everything was peaceful. Qiguan Jinghui saw their interaction and inexplicably felt a little strange. Jinghui. Sun Wen had been working in Beizhou, for almost 2 years. Because of the New Year's banquet, he made a special trip back to Wanzhou to report on his work. His adorable little grandson, Lan, sat obediently beside him, making the old man feel an unprecedented sense of happiness. However, Sun Lan, on the other hand, couldn't sit still. She kept twisting her head and glancing at the seats beside her from time to time. When Qiguan Jinghui heard Sun Lan calling her, she temporarily threw that strange feeling to the back of her mind and responded to her friend's call with a smile. Sun Wen saw this and remembered it in his heart. Lan likes that girl a lot. Sun Lan blushed and said shyly, "Jinghui is very nice. She often takes care of me. Of course I like her." Sun Wen said, "I like him, but that Qiguan Wanzheng is not easy to deal with." Sun Lan was confused. What did him liking Jinghui have to do with Jinghui's father? "You'll find out later." Sun Wen held back his laughter and continued, "If you like her, then spend more time with her. Don't bully her." Sun Wen also noticed that his grandson had become much more outgoing and optimistic in the past 2 years. As someone who loved grandchildren, there was nothing more important in this world than having grandchildren. If his grandson liked it, then he liked it. Qiguan Rang was a little difficult to deal with, but it wasn't impossible to deal with him. The grandfather and grandson talked in low voices. Qiguan Rang, who was some distance away, seemed to have sensed their conversation. He glanced at them from the corner of his eye. At that moment, Qiguan Rang heard his lord say something, For today's performance, I still need to borrow something from Zixiao. Qiguan Rang's attention immediately returned to the banquet. His lord got up from the banquet table and seemed to want to perform something. Jiang Pengji wanted to borrow something from Wei Xi. How could he refuse? With the green light all the way, Jiang Pengji successfully borrowed Wei Xi's flute and his daughter. Everyone was confused. When did Wei Xi have a daughter? He didn't even have a wife. Could she be an illegitimate daughter who was tossed around during the war? A few insiders looked at Wei Xi and then at their lord. They were afraid that the New Year's banquet would turn into a battlefield. Wei Xi was surprised at first. Then he revealed an indescribable expression. His ears turned red at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Wei Xi had once teased that the iron-eating beast was Jiang Pengji's daughter. Now that Jiang Pengji teased him back in public, didn't that mean that the iron-eating beast was their daughter? Others didn't know the details and were purely watching the show. As an insider, Wei Xi felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. He was teased in public, and he was so embarrassed that he didn't want to show his face. Not long after, a servant girl came up with a black and white ball. The ball's black and shiny eyes were pure and clean. As soon as it landed, it wiggled its buttocks and quickly crawled toward a familiar person. Jiang Pengji smiled as she took the jade flute. Feng Zhen and the others saw the situation and were suddenly enlightened. They suddenly remembered the battle with the Gaiyue clan in Tsang Prefecture. Their lord's flute music could be said to be heavenly. Although she could tame beasts, their lord's musical talent was really unflattering. If she played music in public. Chapter 1238. Jiang Pengji giggled and said, "I'm having fun with the people today. If I don't play well, please don't mind." Everyone, was there still a need to say it? Didn't he know how good his lord's flute skills were? Jiang Pengji placed the jade flute to her lips and played a cheerful tune. She might not be good at anything else, but her ability to imitate and memorize was top-notch. Ever since the battle with the Gaiyue clan ended, Wei Xi had taught her how to play the flute in private. After all, she couldn't just play it randomly every time, right? Jiang Pengji was a busy person. She did not have much time to learn. So far, she only knew one song. Even if he only knew one song, he would barely be able to deal with it. Everyone and the 850,000 salted fish in a live stream were already mentally prepared for the demonic music to pour into their ears. But to their surprise, the flute music wasn't unpleasant at all. While the others were dumbfounded, Wei Xi smiled faintly. Although her skills were mediocre, his lord knew how to tame beasts, which added a lot of color to the song. As the sound of the flute rang out, the iron-eating beast that had burrowed into Wei Xi's arms seemed to have been summoned by something. Its huge face was filled with confusion. The crowd watched as it held a plate of fruits with its two front paws and walked on its two hind legs. It circled around Jiang Pengji with each step it took. As it circled, it used its hind legs to beat the beat and hummed a tune. When the tune ended, the iron-eating beast seemed to have gained intelligence. It nodded and bowed to Jiang Pengji. It held the plate of fruits high up and presented it to her in a pious manner. Jiang Pengji did not take it, so it put the fruit platter down. "You may leave." The iron-eating beast seemed to understand her words. It wriggled its way towards Wei Xi, clinging onto his knees as it climbed into his embrace. It found a comfortable position, yawned, and closed its eyes to sleep. Jiang Pengji smiled and kept the jade flute. She bent over to pick up the fruit platter and put it back on Wei Xi's table. Everyone was in a daze for a long time. They looked at Jiang Pengji and then at the sleeping cub. Could it be that this iron-eating beast had become a spirit? So human-like? Jiang Pengji smiled and said, "It's just a small trick to train beasts. It's fine to use it for entertainment and to make you laugh." It took a long time for everyone to recover from the show. Even if Jiang Pengji's song was not exquisite, the addition of the iron-eating beast performance still brought about a qualitative change in the entire program. Not only did he not make a fool of himself, but he also added a layer of mystery to himself. The people of this era were still very superstitious. The more extraordinary Jiang Pengji's performance was, the better it would be. Naturally, the more outstanding she would be. Her little show of skill had fooled the civil and military officials who had never seen the world. However, Salted Fish in a live stream room lived in an era of information explosion, so he naturally wasn't that easily fooled. As soon as Jiang Pengji's performance ended, the bullet screen in the streaming room was like a blowout. All of them were praising her. Gu Mingjiu, the host, has finally shown her Mary Sue aura. It's best if she blinds them. Little gray round gun. Not only did the streamer blind CI, Marin, and the rest, but my eyes are also going blind. How old was that fatty duh? Even if it had been trained since it was in its mother's womb, it couldn't have behaved so humanely, right? Moreover, they were not used to walking on two hind legs, which was not good for their bodies. However, this little fatty was able to do it so smoothly and naturally. It was definitely a fatty demon. Luo Yuta Hua Xing. It cooperated very well with the host. It was even humming a tune just now. If this isn't becoming a demon, what is it? The Fairy Queen's Crimson. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, animals are not allowed to become demons. Tudu Feichio. The host doesn't have this heavenly restriction. Maybe it has become a demon. Didn't you notice that this fatty duh was the fatty duh that appeared in the live stream room a long time ago? It used to be so small. Now that almost a year has passed, it's still so small. As everyone knew, after a young fatty duh was born, it changed considerably. The age of the fatty duh on the screen was obviously very young. It looked to be only 3 to 5 months old. Jiang Pengji smiled without saying a word. She did not explain the secret behind it. Of course, this iron-eating beast did not become a demon. Its actions were all controlled by Jiang Pengji. She turned her mental strength into an invisible force and manipulated the iron-eating beast to do what she wanted. The truth was that simple. Jiang Pengji did not explain. Everyone could only attribute the effect of the performance to the magical, familiar, and becoming a demon from being fat. It was rare for her to perform, so the civil and military officials naturally gave her face and supported her performance. The atmosphere of the New Year's banquet returned to normal. Seeing that, Mrs. Han's expression became extremely stiff, as if it was covered with a layer of plaster. She did not feel good at all. She reflected on herself. She felt that it was probably her fault for being too obvious. That was why Han Yu had a handle on her. If she had been more cautious just now, she would not have been so embarrassed. Even though Jiang Pengji had considerately helped Han Yu out, it was still a slap in the face in Mrs. Han's eyes. It seemed that she did not expose her, but in fact, she had torn off her dignity and trampled on it. Mrs. Han felt so suffocated that she could not breathe. Her face was getting worse and worse. Han Yu said, "Are you satisfied now? This is the New Year's banquet. Restrain yourself. Don't lose your manners and make a fool of yourself." Mrs. Han would not listen to anything else, but when it came to her manners and dignity, she would listen to it very well. No matter how resentful Mrs. Han was, she did not dare to show her anger. She could only swallow it back. Jiang Pengji laughed and chatted with the crowd while secretly glancing at Han Yu and his wife. The couple did not seem to get along well. But, after all, it was Han Yu's family business. As a man, he would handle it well. Jiang Pengji was an outsider and the Lord. It was not appropriate for her to intervene. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Jiang Pengji took the crowd to watch a few lively new plays. Some of the new plays were warm and happy, and some were purely funny, like Crosstalk and Skit. When it was almost time, Jiang Pengji asked them to go home and stay with their families for the New Year's Eve. It was the first time that the eldest son of Han Yu's wife had a New Year's Eve like this. He was still thinking about the content of the new plays and the peers he had just met. Mrs. Han sat in the carriage silently. There was a distance of a few fists between her and Han Yu. Han Yu said, "After the New Year's Eve, I plan to send my son to the Golden Scale Academy for his education. How can the Golden Scale Academy compare to my family school?" Mrs. Han frowned. "That kind of place will lead the students astray?" Han Yu was a little angry. He said, "My teacher also teaches in the academy. How can it lead the students astray?" Mrs. Han did not say anything, but judging from her eyes and expression, she did not approve of Han Yu. So what if it was the Golden Scale Academy? How could a reputation that was made up of be compared to the aristocratic families that had made great contributions? However, her husband did not understand her. The more she thought about it, the more she felt wronged. In order to be a good example of a noble lady, she promoted the maids who had served Hanyu before their marriage. She even gave them face and treated their children kindly. She had worked hard for her family, but she could not get Hanyu's understanding and respect. Mrs. Han said forcefully, "If you want to use the children's future to flatter them, you can humiliate anyone but me." The sons and daughters of concubines in the inner courtyard could just go to the Golden Scale Academy. Anyway, they were the sons of concubines who couldn't be seen in public. It would be a waste for them to study with a bunch of lowly commoners' children. If she let her eldest son go to the academy, she would cry to death. Hanyu was so angry that his face turned green. The eldest son of the concubine lowered his head silently under the gloomy atmosphere. He did not dare to look at his parents. "You are not allowed to be willful and mischievous," Mrs. Han sneered. "Are you really as cruel as iron? Are you going to humiliate my son?" Hanyu said, "I am not humiliating him. I love him dearly. Why would I harm him?" Mrs. Han was disheartened. She was so angry that she and Hanyu lived separately. She left the father and son to stay up for the New Year's Eve and went to bed early. Hanyu let out a long sigh, but he could not do anything to his wife. When you go to the Golden Scale Academy, treat your classmates with courtesy. Do not be arrogant. Hanyu gently reminded his eldest son during the New Year's Eve. The eldest son was gentle and obedient. Chapter 1239. After the beginning of the new year, happy events came one after another. The most exciting event was Feng Zhen and Wan Xiao'er's wedding. This pair was really beyond everyone's expectations. After all, who didn't know what kind of person Feng Longzi was? Everyone heard that Feng Zhen was getting married, but many people thought it was just gossip. After all, Feng Zhen's image as a prodigal son was deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Everyone would rather believe that a sow climbed a tree than believe that Feng Zhen would change his mind. Especially the middle-level newcomers recruited by the Golden Scale Pavilion, they had a deep understanding of this. When Jiang Pengji dealt with Su Bei last year, Feng Zhen stayed behind to guard the rear. The new recruits would have to interact with Feng Zhen and the others. Putting aside his ability to get things done, Feng Zhen's image as a prodigal son was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. Many of the new recruits hadn't even familiarized themselves with the affairs of the city, but they had already heard rumors about Feng Zhen making a scene at some wine shop. How rare was this? Was there anyone in this world who could take in this prodigal's son? The old official did not move, but the new official could not suppress his curiosity. He raised his head in anticipation, waiting to see what kind of fairy the bride was. In the words of the viewers in the live stream room, who would dare to go up Liangshan if they didn't have a few tricks up their sleeve? Feng Zhen said proudly, "This is called a prodigal who repents is more precious than gold." Yang Si sneered, mercilessly mocking Feng Zhen. "You're a real wastrel. I don't know if you'll really turn back." Feng Zhen choked on his words. How could he speak like a human? Was there a need to question his character? A spit and a nail, a promise as heavy as Mount Tai. If he said he would turn back, he would turn back without any hesitation. Feng Zhen resisted the urge to roll his eyes and strangle Yang Si. He gritted his teeth and said, "We're about to get married. Can't you say something nice?" Although he was a romantic, he was not a man without family responsibilities. It was fine to fool around before marriage, but after marriage, it was time to turn over a new leaf. He and Feng Yi's mother had been in love for a while after they got married. If it wasn't for the early death of his first wife, Feng Zhen wouldn't have completely let himself go after her death. Although he was unrestrained, he was only unrestrained and not a scumbag. The relationship between a man and a woman was about compatibility. A melon that was forcefully twisted would not be sweet. Mutual consent was the way of the king. He still had this bit of moral integrity. Seeing that Feng Zhen's explanation was logical and logical, Yang Si could only respond with a cold huff. Could he say that he was very unhappy? Feng Zhen, that little b***tch, had found an honest man to take over his business. Now he had a wife, a son, and a wife. He was a winner in life. Why was he still alone? Yang Si looked calm and collected on the surface, but in fact he was filled with resentment. His face was drooping all day long, as if he was dissatisfied. Dian Yin, who was being taught by Yang Si, spoke up weakly. Isn't it easy for military advisor Yang to start a family? As long as you let out the slightest bit of news, wouldn't those matchmakers rush over like a hive of bees with portraits of girls in their hands and trample over your doorstep? Yang Si secretly glared at Dian Yin. Was it fun to tear him down? This crude and stupid martial artist had not improved at all. How could women be the same? What was the difference between a person without any pursuit and a salted fish? If he were to marry a wife, he would naturally marry the one he liked the most in his eyes. Any random woman would suffice. He might as well continue to fool around. If it's that easy, why don't you find one? He couldn't diss that little b asterisk tch Feng Zhan. But wouldn't it be easy to deal with Dian Yin? Who would have thought that Dian Yin, this dark-skinned and honest man, would also commit adultery? I'm already married and have a wife. Of course, I don't need to look for one. He looked at Yang Si and stammered. Have you forgotten, military advisor? My wife was a matchmaker for me. She's now the centurion of the casualty barracks. Yang Si was stunned. He thought back carefully, and it seemed that there really was such a thing. This happened when the two of them were ordered to guard Hu County. Yang Si saw that Dian Yin, this honest man, was all alone and didn't even have a wife who could take care of him. Yang Si acted like a matchmaker and introduced him to someone. Dian Yin's wife was originally the centurion of the female battalion. She was about to be promoted, but she was injured and had no choice but to retire. After that, she applied to go to the casualty barracks and became an apprentice with the military doctor. She learned pretty good trauma treatment. This girl's character was straightforward and generous. Her family background was clean, and she had no parents or brothers to hold her back. The key was that she was not bad looking and could read a few words. Among the commoners, she could be considered a model girl that would be sought after by hundreds of families. Yang Si was tempted and introduced her to Dian Yin as a matchmaker. Don't let goodies flow to outsiders. He never expected that this matter would become a stone that would smash his own foot. This boorish man was really pissed off. Yang Si glared at Dian Yin angrily. The latter was at a loss and didn't know how he had offended his military advisor Yang. Flirtatious words aside, Feng Zhan was getting married. He still had to give his blessings. In this world, it wasn't easy to start a family. He should cherish it. From the time the news spread to the wedding, it had been less than 2 months. Everyone thought that the wedding wouldn't be held. With so little time, it was understandable that they weren't fully prepared. Moreover, Feng Zhan and Wan Xiao were married halfway, so it definitely wouldn't be as solemn as their first marriage. In the end, they had underestimated Feng Zhan's flirtatious methods. Time was tight, but the wedding wasn't shabby at all. So what if they were married halfway? A second marriage was still a marriage. What should be done had to be done. They definitely couldn't let the guests attending the wedding banquet laugh at them. It's rare for Zisher to be so serious. It was an indisputable fact that the wedding preparations were tight. However, Wei Si and the others didn't see any signs of haste or impoliteness. From this, it could be seen that Feng Zhan still took this wedding very seriously. Yang Si laughed coldly in his heart when he saw this. In his mind, he recalled the scene of Feng Zhan leisurely slacking off. The wedding was very attentive, but the person doing the hard work wasn't Feng Zhan. He was just an absentee shopkeeper. So what if he had a smart and capable son? Reality had proven that having a smart and capable son was indeed a great thing. Not only did Feng Zhan marry a beautiful woman today, but he also praised his son in front of the guests. He praised Feng Yi's face so much that it looked like a flower had bloomed. In the eyes of outsiders, it probably looked like a flower had bloomed. How old was Feng Yizong? At such a young age, he was already so methodical and organized. What would he be like when he grew up? Although it was just a wedding, there were many tricks to it. Just entertaining guests and dealing with people was a complicated subject. Feng, he could handle things with ease now. He wasn't slick, but he was still watertight. Feng Yi's personality was gentle and not flamboyant, but he was a good seedling in the officialdom. If the world was at peace and his lord had the possibility of advancing, Feng Yi might become the leader of this generation. Understanding this, many people looked at Feng Zhen with unfriendly gazes. Why? Feng Zhen, this unreliable guy, actually had a reliable son. Wei Ci could vaguely hear a group of people expressing envy, jealousy, and hatred toward Feng Zhen. He sighed in his heart. There was a Feng Yi now, and there would be a Feng Yu in the future. That fellow was the real, troublesome one. Other people gave birth to a litter of children, good and bad, and not a single one of them would be successful. Feng Zhen, this sickly and frail person, only had 2 sons, both of whom were dragons and phoenixes among men. Chapter 1240. Perhaps even God couldn't bear to see Feng Zhen being so smug. He had only taken 3 days off before he was summoned back urgently. Feng Zhen was having a wild time. He and Wan Xiao were so intimate that they couldn't wait to be together every day. How could he care about the cold government affairs? I've rested long enough, Jiang Pengji said heartlessly. It's time for you to get back to business. Feng Zhen argued, My lord, this is different from what I said before. It's only been 3 days. When Li Yun and Shangwan Wan got married, how long was their wedding leave? This matter had to be treated equally. How could she favor one and discriminate against the other? Jiang Pengji said matter-of-factly, Didn't I give you a long leave to handle your wedding? Feng Zhen was speechless. Was the time spent preparing for the wedding counted as a part of the wedding leave? As if she could read Feng Zhen's mind, Jiang Pengji almost rolled her eyes. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Feng Zhen's wedding leave was the busiest period before the new year. Jiang Pengji allowed him to take leave and assign the heavy government affairs to others. She was already being extremely kind. If she let Feng Zhen take another half a month or a month's leave, the others would be resentful. After the new year, it was spring plowing and training. Everyone was busy. There was no reason for Feng Zhen to stay at home and be lovey-dovey with his lovely wife. Feng Zhen's request was rejected by Jiang Pengji. He could only resign himself to his fate and go to work. He was as dispirited as a salted fish. He didn't know if someone was trying to mess with him. Feng Zhen realized that the tasks he took on after he returned to work were troublesome and above average. He had been busy for 2 days. The dark circles under his eyes that he had painstakingly disappeared reappeared. He looked even more like he had kidney deficiency. This bunch of animals, Feng Zhen was smiling on the surface, but he was cursing in his heart. Did he not burn enough incense in his previous life to meet such a bunch of unscrupulous colleagues? The spring plowing was carried out in full swing. After Jiang Pengji presided over the ceremony, she stayed in the military camp to train the soldiers. Is the Duke of Lanting going to attack again this year? Tea houses and restaurants had always been the birthplace of gossip and a place for communication. The scholars within the borders of Dongqing who were attracted by the Golden Scale Pavilion loved to stop and stay in these places. They talked about current affairs and the world. If there was anything shocking, the Duke of Lanting might find out and punish them. Although the possibility of this was very small, one should have a dream as well. The Golden Scale Pavilion's assessment was very strict, and there would always be people who liked to take a different path. Since ancient times, many famous people had relied on this to be conscripted by monarchs. As the training became more and more intense, many scholars also sensed that a storm was coming. The war just ended last year, and the people haven't had enough rest yet. They shouldn't be mobilizing their troops this year. Everyone had their own opinions, and the more contradictory the topic, the more interesting it was. However, from what I can see, this Duke of Lanting is not someone who likes to settle down. A young scholar sneered and said, Throughout the Duke of Lanting's road to success, when has he not climbed up by stepping on the bones of his enemies? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this person is a warmonger. Go all out? This conclusion is too arbitrary. The Duke of Lanting was forced by the situation and had no choice but to do so. Wei Ci's method of entertainment brainwashing was not something that others could imagine. In order to make the people stick closely to Jiang Pengji, he hired a pen to write a few short and medium-length stories. Most of them were adapted into new plays for the people to watch. Although the characters in the plays used aliases, people with discerning eyes could tell who they were based on at a glance. In response to Jiang Pengji's reasons for mobilizing her troops, Wei Xi also explained the new plays to the people. The ordinary people could only see the ups and downs of the plot and the awe-inspiring righteousness of the country, while the scholars could see the situation of the storm. Regardless of whether they believed it or not, the people expressed understanding and support for Jiang Pengji's several expeditions. Moreover, their Duke of Lanting fought wars, but every time she fought a war, she did not make the people unable to make a living. The military provisions and supplies were all stored in advance. If it did not work, she would open a private warehouse. She never exploited the people wantonly because of the war, nor did she impose any exorbitant taxes. Jiang Pengji tried her best to protect the people's safety and property interests. How could the people not love and respect her? Ignorant. In recent years, wars have been going on every year. Before he finished speaking, someone stood up to refute him. This is a little far-fetched. Although I don't like the Duke of Lanting, I can't stand your slander and slander. The man waved the folding fan in his hand. The wind moved the headscarf on his head, making him look rather dashing. He continued to speak with fervor and assurance, and the people nodded their heads vigorously. Since the earthquake in Shangjing, the world has been in chaos. The Tsingyi army, the Red Lotus group, and other evil sects have risen one after another, harming countless people. The Duke of Lanting received orders in the face of danger to expel the two traitors, integrate Wanzhou, form an alliance at the Huangshui River, enter Chongzhou in the north, control Hu County in the south, and integrate the forces of the north of Dongqing to resist the external troubles of the north borderline. After that, the entire north was calm and peaceful. After a few years of rest and reorganization, the Duke of Lanting felt that the time was ripe. Only then did he send troops to the north borderline and recover it in one fell swoop. How can this be called being a warmonger? Being a warmonger meant mobilizing troops to fight a war without a sense of propriety and overdrawing one's foundation. Their Duke of Lanting obviously did not do that. She chose to mobilize troops to the north borderline at a time when their vitality was at its weakest. It was obviously planned, organized, and premeditated. Turning the north borderline into the North Province would also greatly damage their vitality and cause them to face the predicament of being surrounded by enemies on all sides. If they showed the slightest bit of cowardice at that time, they would certainly be hunted down and eaten by the heroes. How could they be compared to the magnificent scene of everyone sitting upright in the tea house and talking with fervor and assurance now? Subei was executed in Zhe and Shanghai counties were conquered. Most of Dongqing is already in the bag. If we don't take advantage of this victory to pursue and attack, it will be difficult to eliminate Huang Song when he has a firm foothold. In summary, Jiang Pengji had her reasons for mobilizing her troops. She mobilized her troops to allow the people in the rear to enjoy peace. Even if they didn't support her, they shouldn't make a fuss. What was the difference between this and picking up a bowl to eat and then putting down the chopsticks to curse? Her impassioned speech made many people's faces turn red with shame or ashen. Those who were more thin-skinned directly flicked their sleeves and left. Even the people could see Jiang Pengji's intention to mobilize her troops, let alone her enemies. Huang Song's side seemed calm, but in fact, undercurrents were surging in the dark. He was actively training his troops for war and stockpiling food on a large scale. It seemed like he was on the verge of breaking out. Everyone was preparing for war. Of course, in ancient times, wars could not be fought at will. They had to choose the right time. It was inadvisable to start a war before and after the spring plowing. In this era, the efficiency and harvest of crops were very low. The staple crops were basically harvested once a year. In other words, if they missed this year's spring plowing, then the entire year's harvest would be gone. In war, not only did it depend on manpower, but it also depended on food and logistics. Once there was no food, how could they fight a war? The war could only start after the spring plowing. This was a convention. Chapter 1241. The territory under Jiang Pengji's rule was filled with a foreboding atmosphere. She trained her troops day by day. Everyone thought she was going to fight Huang Song. Everyone was guessing when she would do it. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pengji was much more composed than they thought. The storm in the outside world did not affect the atmosphere in the academy. The sound of students reading in the classroom was still light and pleasant. Under Jiang Pengji's suggestion, the Golden Scale Academy made a rule to recruit new students every spring. The adults outside were busy with the spring plowing. A group of little radishes also passed the selection and became the newest batch of students in the Golden Scale Academy. Apart from the freshmen of the lowest grade, other classes also welcomed some transfer students. Despite Mrs. Han's strong resistance, Han Yu still sent 3 children of the right age to the Golden Scale Academy. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son of the legal wife and the second son of the concubine had been educated for several years. The eldest daughter of the legal wife was 1 year younger than the second son of the concubine. The youngest son of the legal wife was only 2 years old and was still learning how to speak. Han Yu sent all 3 children to the Golden Scale Academy in one go. Mrs. Han was so angry that she almost fainted. The masters of the Golden Scale Academy took half a day to test the knowledge of the 3 children. Han Yu was very attentive to the eldest son of the legal wife. He was also the one who taught him. Later, he was sent to Mrs. Han's family to study. Although the second son of the legal wife was not as valued as the eldest son of the legal wife, he was also taught by a famous old scholar. The only daughter of the legal wife was also taught by a female master. Although she was not as good as her 2 brothers, she was still acceptable. The masters of the Golden Scale Academy tested them one by one and divided them into 3 different classes. Han Yu's eldest son of the legal wife was in the same class as Feng Yi. The master of this class was Master Yuan Jing. "What's your name?" Master Yuan Jing took the child away and personally sent him to the classroom. "I am Han Run." "Greetings, Grandmaster." Han Yu was Master Yuan Jing's apprentice. Naturally, the child had to call him Grandmaster. "You can call me Grandmaster in private, but you are a student in the academy. I am your master." Master Yuan Jing liked Han Run. The child's eyes were very similar to Han Yu's when he was young, but his temperament was the opposite of Han Yu's. "Your father is busy with government affairs and has no time for your studies. If there is anything you don't understand, you must ask the masters. They will help you." Han Run's little face was a little hesitant. "If I call you master, wouldn't it be wrong? If that was the case, wouldn't he be the same generation as his father?" Master Yuan Jing smiled and said, "This is not considered a mistake in seniority. Who says that I can't teach you after I taught your father?" After all, Han Run was a new student. If he addressed Master Yuan Jing as Grandmaster, it would inevitably be a little unconventional. The other students of the academy were more powerful than him. Was Yuan Jing's academy by the other students? With and by Master Han Yun. By you. Master Yuan Jing arranged for Han Run to be next to Feng Yi. He hoped that Feng Yi could help Han Run blend into the unfamiliar environment. Jiang, by, Jiang in, by, was. The teaching model and environment of the Golden Scale Academy were very different from the clan school. Han Run was not used to it at first. Han Run felt like he had opened the door to a new world. In the morning, there were cultural classes, and in the afternoon, there were equestrian and martial arts classes. Before he knew it, the sun had set. Han Run noticed Feng Yi and put his textbook into his bag. "Are you ready?" Feng Yi asked. Han Run was surprised. It was the first time Feng Yi talked to him. Because of his mother's character, Han Run was shy and introverted. But he was different from Sun Lan, who was innocent and harmless. He always acted cautiously. He didn't dare to talk to Feng Yi. He didn't expect her to greet him. Han Run said, "Yes, I'm ready." Feng Yi asked, "I heard that some of your siblings are also studying in the academy?" Han Run pursed his lips and answered, "Yes." Feng Yi said, "Great. Let's go pick them up and go back together." Han Run's eyes were filled with doubt. Pick them up, Feng Yi said. The Golden Scale Academy is not in the residential area. It is not remote, but there are many people. After all, the students were still young. If they encountered an adult with ill intentions, it would be impossible to guard against it. You are new students and don't know the way. I will send you back. Han Run wanted to say something, but swallowed his words. He always had a question. Why didn't they let their servants drive them? Why did they have to walk by themselves? Wouldn't it be easier to encounter danger on the road? Feng Yi comforted him. There are people around to protect us. We don't have to worry about danger. Han Yu's mansion was the closest. Han Run and the other two were sent back first. Qiguan Jinghui and Sun Lan followed. Changsheng was the last one. I just asked. Brother Han Run and his younger brother are only 5 months apart, Feng Yi said, because the other one is born of a concubine. They don't share the same mother. Changsheng said, no wonder they walk so far away. They are not close at all. Feng Yi said, it would be strange if the son of a legal wife and the son of a concubine were close. Aren't they all brothers? Feng Yi laughed. Brothers depend on the situation. Han Run has a good personality. He doesn't have any bad feelings for his brother, but his brother doesn't think so. The identity of a legal wife and a concubine is a chasm. One is the legitimate son, and the other is not. The difference is huge. Changxing said, if Aunt Feng has a child in the future and has a brother, will he be a concubine's brother? No, he will be a legal wife's son. He will be my biological brother. Changxing was confused. Sai, it's so hard to understand. Feng Yi said, you will understand when you grow up. Changxing was tired after a few steps and let Feng Yi carry her. Will brother Feng Yi have a son of a concubine in the future? Feng Yi laughed. No, he will only have a legal wife's son. Since it was the first time that the eldest son of a legal wife went to the Golden Scale Academy to study, Han Yu waited at home. How is the academy? Han Run answered with a red face. The academy is great. The classmates are great too. Although it was only a day, Han Run clearly felt the difference between the academy and the family school. In the family school, it was difficult for the master to take care of the progress of all the students. After all, Han Run was not a member of the family. The master of the family school always looked after the direct descendant of the family first. Han Run could only keep his questions to himself and wait for his father or the master to solve them in private. Although the progress of his studies was not slow, the efficiency of his studies was indeed very low. Today, Han Run found that the progress of more than 20 classmates was almost the same. The content that the master talked about was suitable for them. Han Yu listened carefully to his son's daily life in the academy and felt relieved. Chapter 1242. Although Han Yu had just surrendered, Jiang Pengji trusted him very much. She even entrusted the task of preparing military provisions to Han Yu and Su Ke. Su Ke had been serving Jiang Pengji for a long time, so he was naturally capable. It was the first task Han Yu received after he joined Jiang Pengji's camp, so he had to do it properly. He was too busy with government affairs and had no spare energy to take care of family affairs. In the end, he had to ask his wife for help. After thinking for a while, Han Yu tried to persuade his wife with affection and reason, try to ease the relationship between husband and wife. Mrs. Han was still unhappy, but since Han Yu had come to her in person, she could only swallow her anger and plan for the future. The relationship between husband and wife seemed to be improving, but it was actually freezing. Mrs. Han belittled the Golden Scale Academy in front of her son whenever she had time, which made Han Run very helpless. Mother, there are many great scholars in the Golden Scale Academy. They can solve the students' doubts at any time. I think studying in the academy is much better than studying in the family school. Mrs. Han's face was livid. She said, my son is still young. How can he distinguish between good and bad? The family school is accumulated through generations of meritorious deeds. It's the essence of the predecessors. The foundation of the family school is incomparable to that of an ordinary family. Isn't it a waste of my son's time to study here? As a son, Han Run could not refute his mother. He could only endure and listen patiently. After all, Han Run was the son of Mrs. Han. How could she not know her son? Seeing her son's unchanging attitude, Madame Han felt even more stifled in her chest. Had her husband and son been poisoned by someone? Why were they so partial to an ordinary family? Although Han Run was not brainwashed by his mother, he was tired of being harassed day after day. Feng Yi saw through his emotions. After she asked, Han Run told her the truth about his troubles. "Mother, it seems that you still insist that I go to the family school." Han Run knew his mother's character. She was too stubborn. She rarely changed her mind. "I don't want to. Besides, the family school is far away in Ji County, and my parents are in Wanzhou." Although Han Run was young, he had a certain judgment ability. He did not know how much trust Jiang Pingji had in his father, but he could guess that Han Run, as the eldest son of Han Yu, did not stay in Wanzhou. Instead, he went to the family school in Ji County, which was thousands of miles away. He was afraid that it would be a taboo. Han Run did not want his father to be put in a difficult position. Feng Yi frowned. Madame Han's stubbornness was beyond his imagination. In the short term, it wouldn't affect Han Run, but in the long run, it would inevitably distract him from his studies. Feng Yi said, "There's no rush in this matter. You should stabilize your mother first." He informed his father, Feng Zhen, about this matter. Coincidentally, Feng Zhen was also busy and directly threw him to Wei Ci. Wei Ci, Feng Yi was very embarrassed. This was a child's trifling matter, and it had taken up their precious time. She really felt bad about it. Wei Ci said, "It's hard for an upright official to settle a family dispute. It's better to let the whole family talk it over." Feng Yi frowned. Han Run wouldn't have to be stuck between his parents if he could solve the problem by being honest with them. Feng Yi returned empty-handed, but Wei Ci took this matter to heart. It's better to destroy 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. However, Madame Han is a disaster after all. We should find a way to separate her from Wenbin and his son. Wei Ci frowned. He had reminded Han Yu earlier because he wanted Han Yu to handle the family affairs by himself. However, Han Yu was different from him. He was reborn. Even if he had told Han Yu to be careful of his wife and her family, Han Yu would not take drastic measures before his wife made an unforgivable mistake. At most, he would be cautious. Han Yu could delay it, but his eldest son could not. Wei Ci spent a lot of time recalling, and it took him a long time to find the memory of Han Yu's eldest son. The Jiang dynasty had been established for more than 10 years, and the old and new generations had replaced each other. Among the younger generation, the most outstanding child was undoubtedly the second son of Feng Zhen, Feng Yu. Feng Yu and the crown prince, Jiang Yan, had a close relationship. His future was limitless. Han Yu had many children in his family. There were 3 sons of the first wife. Their talents were not bad, but they were very disagreeable. Disagreeable. This was not what Wei Ci said, but what the crown princess, Jiang Yan, had said. "I'm just choosing a reading partner, not asking them to carry my sedan chair. They can't understand one by one. That Han Run is even better. He really thinks that my ears are not good. He insulted me behind my back and called me a bandit. So what if he's a bandit? I'm the crown prince now. He's not even a subject." Jiang Yan was the eldest daughter of the emperor. She had been appointed as the crown prince not long after the establishment of the Jiang dynasty. If there were no accidents, she would be the next empress. Her reading partner had a special meaning. Reserving the position of reading partner was basically reserving the core position of the next generation in the imperial court. Han Yu's sons of the right age participated in the selection of reading partners, but Jiang Yin did not like any of them. Han Yu's eldest son, Han Run, had been despised by Jiang Yin for a long time. After that, Han Yu's wife's family participated in the rebellion. Madame Han and her eldest son, Han Run, were also involved and ended up being beheaded at the Meridian Gate. Because of Jiang Yan's influence, Wei Ci did not like Han Run. However, when he thought about the Han Run that he had met at Feng Zhen's wedding, he was obedient despite his young age. Wei Ci had no idea how he grew up to be like that. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely because of his mother's influence over the years, which ruined a good seedling. Han Yu neglected to teach his child, which led to Han Run's bad behavior in the future. What's so difficult about it? Just let him die. Jiang Pengji held a pen in her mouth. She raised one hand to put aside the processed bamboo slips and took a new one with the other. Wei Si said, "This won't do. It will be bad if Wenbin finds out." "I was joking just now." Jiang Pengji took down the pen and wrote down the instructions. She said to Wei Si, "It's normal to be arrogant when one is born into an aristocratic family. Madame Han is relying on the power of her family. No matter how powerful they are, they still rely on me to survive and live. Go and check on her wife's family. I don't believe there is any aristocratic family that is completely clean. Once you find out, take your time. She cares so much about her family. If something happens to her family, she won't have the time to harass her son." Wei Si was speechless. What a good move to remove the firewood from under the pot. Wei Si wanted Han Yu and Madame Han to divorce, but he did not expect his lord to be even more ruthless. Jiang Pengji said, "Divorce is actually a good idea, but it's too time-consuming. Wenbin will easily find out. If you hurt your friendship with Wenbin because of this woman, it will not be worth it. Besides, Wenbin is busy with official business, so someone has to take care of the house. Madame Han has a bad temper, but she is good at managing the house. It's good to keep her." Jiang Pengji knew that Madame Han did not like her, but who was she? Chapter 1243. The busy spring plowing slowly came to an end. Time steadily entered April. The audience in the streaming room was looking forward to and worried about the war that had yet to begin. Many of them were impatient and gradually forgot about it. Jiang Pengji had been busy with government affairs for the past few months. Apart from presiding over the spring plowing ceremony, she spent the rest of her time running around and inspecting the situation. The two most important things were the progress of the water-powered spinning wheel and cotton. These two pieces of good news eased the tense atmosphere. Since Jiang Pengji supported Huijun to work on the water-powered spinning wheel, Huijun devoted most of her energy to it. The remaining space was left for the twins. The idea of using the power of water to weave was a fantasy. However, after Jiang Pengji's analysis and encouragement, Huijun felt that it would definitely work. If it didn't work, it must be because she didn't find the right way and didn't work hard enough. With this idea in mind, Huijun often went to the woodworking workshop to look for Zhang Ping or Xiao Guang. This made Fu Wang's subordinates think that she planted 2 blades of grass for Fu Wang. Huijun knew about this and responded with a cold snort. She and Fu Wang were not husband and wife in name. Their relationship was limited to having 2 children together. Fu Wang could not control her no matter who she was close to. Planting grass? It was none of his business to plant a grassland. Of course, her relationship with Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang was not ambiguous. Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang also tried their best to help her practice and perfect the concept of the water-powered spinning wheel with the knowledge of the Maists. Several generations of models were produced in the past 2 or 3 years, but they were not satisfactory. It seemed that something was missing. When the Lord returned with the troops, the woodworking workshop had a new member. This newcomer was incredible. Not only was she a rare female in the carpentry workshop, but she was also a student who had been taught by the Mahist master. Bai Yuexiao was not good at government affairs. Jiang Pengji assigned her to the woodworking workshop and assigned her to work under Zhang Ping. Although Bai Yuexiao was a woman, his lord was also a woman. How could Zhang Ping dare to be disrespectful? It was just that many jobs in the woodworking workshop were tiring. It was common to work overtime and stay up late to revise the design. Zhang Ping was worried that a young girl like Bai Yuexia could not handle it. At first, Bai Yuexia misunderstood the woodworking workshop as an ordinary place. Only when she arrived did she realize that it was very different from what she imagined. Although the name of the woodworking workshop was misleading, it was actually a department with a proper title. As one of the workshop owners of the carpentry workshop, Zhang Ping's salary was only 20 to 30% lower than that of the registrar of the prefecture government. Knowing this, Bai Yuexia finally felt relieved. Her ambition was not to become an ordinary carpenter. The office space that Jiang Pengji allocated to the carpentry workshop was very large. The periphery was filled with ordinary items, and the items and documents were more valuable as they went deeper into the workshop. Bai Yuexia was assigned to be Zhang Ping's assistant. She had a higher starting point, so naturally, she had access to more confidential places. After working with them for a while, she fell in love with this job. Not only was the place of work interesting, but the colleagues were also very interesting. What made her feel most comfortable was the way Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang looked at her. The latter's eyes revealed a bit of strangeness when he first saw her, but the former completely treated her like an ordinary girl, as if he didn't notice the ugly birthmark that took up most of her face. Just this alone was enough to win her favor. When Bai Ning heard his daughter mention the name of another unfamiliar man, he immediately began to plan. If Zhang Ping didn't have a family, he would be a good son-in-law. Little did he know that it was not that Zhang Ping didn't notice Bai Yuexia's birthmark. He was so calm because he had a problem with his aesthetic standards. Why did Wei Ci want to sell Zhang Ping to Bai Yuexia so that Bai Yuexia would not covet Jiang Pengji? Because he knew that Zhang Ping didn't judge a person's beauty by their face, but by their hands. Zhang Ping didn't hear it wrong. Zhang Ping's standard for beauty was the hands, not the face. Why was Zhang Ping so obsessed with his wife, Crane, and still single after so many years? Not only because he liked to be single, but there was another important reason. The only two pairs of hands that he liked were his own and Wei Ci's. Wei Ci was male, not female, and he was also his best friend. Zhang Ping couldn't possibly attack him with a disease, right? Wei Ci noticed Bai Yuexia's hands. According to the aesthetic standards of a mechanical otaku, the hands could score 95 out of 100. Zhang Ping was blind and had facial blindness. Bai Yuexia looked like a fairy, so he couldn't appreciate it. After a few days, Zhang Ping noticed the new assistant. As an otaku who was close to the level of a great magister, he felt moved for the first time. Looking at those hands, he felt a feather gently tickling his heart. The unfamiliar feeling made him confused and helpless. However, Zhang Ping's personality was not much more outgoing than Wei Ci's. He was obsessed with carpentry and didn't know how to express his feelings. In the eyes of outsiders and Bai Yuexia, Zhang Ping was just a qualified and friendly superior. One day, Zhang Ping was modifying the latest version of the hydraulic spinning wheel. This version of the spinning wheel was very close to the ideal state, but something went wrong, and there were always problems when it ran. Zhang Ping and Hui Jun racked their brains over this problem until Bai Yuexia's words woke them up. After the modification, the hydraulic spinning wheel could smoothly use the power of water. There were no problems when it ran for a while. Although the single efficiency was still not high, and it couldn't be compared to manual spinning. If one person took care of more than 10 hydraulic spinning wheels, the efficiency would be like a runaway wild horse. When the good news reached Jiang Pengji's ears, the whole streaming room was in an uproar. Their streamer usually didn't make a sound, but the slightest movement would cause a big problem. When they saw the ancient version of the hydraulic spinning wheel, the audience immediately took screenshots and rushed to the top searches. However, Zhang Ping wasn't very optimistic about it. Firstly, the efficiency didn't reach the expected figure. Secondly, the spinning wheel relied too much on water. Once the water flow reached the dry period, the spinning wheel was basically useless. It was too unstable. It was better to use the original manpower. In addition, if spinning was completely replaced by hydraulic spinning, it would have a big impact on ordinary farmers. It was fine to make it for fun, but it was almost impossible to promote it on a large scale. Jiang Pengji had already made a decision, but she wanted her subordinates to use their own brains. Then tell me your opinion. Although Zhang Ping was a technical otaku, it didn't mean that he didn't pass the cultural class. He just wasn't as proficient as Wei Ci and the others. I think there are 4 problems with this. First, although the people's lives have improved, the clothes they wear aren't expensive and the demand isn't high. The output of ordinary households is roughly equal to the demand. Second, if the hydraulic spinning wheel takes away the livelihood of ordinary farmers, the value of the cloth will decrease. I'm afraid many people will lose their livelihood. Third, the spinning wheel needs water to run. If there's a drought and no rain, the wheel will be useless and can only be left to rot. Fourth, the spinning wheel can make a lot of things, but there aren't many materials for weaving. The first 3 points were very important, but the most important point was the fourth point. There weren't many raw materials for weaving. No matter how capable the hydraulic spinning wheel was, how much could it do? If the returns couldn't match the investment, wouldn't it be a loss-making business? Chapter 1244. Apart from these 4 points, Zhang Ping did not mention one more point. He was afraid that he would offend Jiang Pengji. Nowadays, the land that was reclaimed was used to cultivate edible crops. She could not change it to something else for the sake of a hydraulic spinning wheel, could she? In a chaotic world, manpower and land were the most important. Zhang Ping faintly felt that his lord wanted to do something big and gradually weaken the weight of manpower and land. However, reform was not something that could be accomplished in a day. It could easily affect the people of the world. Zhang Ping did not want his lord to be rash and radical, which would result in the failure of her hegemony. Which one of the reformers had a good ending in the end? Zhang Ping finished speaking calmly and waited for Jiang Pengji's decision. She said, "Shi Hing's concern is reasonable." As soon as she finished speaking, the audience in the streaming room was the first to disagree. No matter how useful the hydraulic spinning wheel was, it had a milestone significance. Lunzi Zhu Lunzi. Damn, streamer, don't be swayed by Zhang Ping. Although what he said is very reasonable, I can tell you that the significance of this thing is definitely more than that. Maybe later history will write this thing as a symbol of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Yewu Yanling. Although what Zhang Ping said is not wrong, and he thinks this way because of the current social context, the streamer is not from this era. She comes from the future and should be more aware of the importance of technology. If Zhang Ping's words could make her give up on this idea, she would not have supported Miss Wei Jun to do this. Have you all forgotten that Miss Wan Xiao made cotton? This is a combo. With a reminder from the big boss in the streaming room, everyone finally remembered that Wan Xiao made cotton. A water-powered spinning wheel wasn't much, but if cotton was also popular, this combination of punches would definitely be able to stun people. If cotton was cultivated for a few generations, as long as the output reached 20% to 30% of the standard of their era, the impact on this ancient time and space would be equivalent to an earthquake. China had a population of 1 billion. Its land area was similar to that of the 5 countries of this era. However, the population of the 5 countries did not exceed 100 million because of the war over the years. With such a small population and so much land, there was still room for development. In addition, they also knew that cotton did not have high requirement for soil. It was not as delicate as rice and wheat. Food occupied the most fertile land. There was no conflict between planting cotton and other places. The audience understood with emotion and was moved with reason. They wished they could rush into the screen, cross the dimensional barrier, and personally talk to Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji didn't want to scare the idle audience anymore. She simply said, although Shi Hing's concerns are reasonable, it's not like there are no solutions to these difficult problems. Shi Hing, my current ambition is to let all the people in the world be able to wear warm clothes and eat their fill. This thing is very useful. Zhang Ping looked at Jiang Pengji. He had always been face-blind, but when he saw the expression on his lord's face, he suddenly understood what Wei Si had said. Wei Si had said that when the Lord talked about serious matters, her eyes would shine, as if they could see through time and see the future. Zhang Ping initially despised Wei Si for being too artsy, but now he empathized with him. It was indeed glowing. Zhang Ping was blinded by the light, and by Yuexiao's fangirl was even more intoxicated, unable to extricate herself. What does my lord want? We haven't made any progress yet, but it won't be long. However, the spinning wheels here still need to be modified. I'm afraid they won't be enough when the time comes. Jiang Pingji kept them in suspense. She said, it's true that this will harm the livelihood of some people, but it will be beneficial to the people of the world. I will also think of ways to compensate the people whose interests have been damaged. I will try my best to reduce their losses and not affect their family's livelihood. If you are timid and give up the happiness of the majority for the sake of the interests of a small group of people, then you are not a qualified lord. Zhang Ping nodded as he listened, but Bai Yuexiao was keenly aware that the lord's last sentence had a double meaning. For the interests of the majority, she could sacrifice the interests of a small group of people without hesitation. What if this small group of people were not ordinary people, but the aristocrats? Thinking back to her attitude towards the aristocrats, the commoners, and the ordinary people, this lord was indeed different. Bai Yuexia secretly glanced at Jiang Pengji's side profile. She only felt that this person was more upright than the men in the world. She had her own proud and unyielding character. Bai Yuexia and Hui Jun were infatuated with her. Until Bai Yuexia asked, "My lord, you said that the spinning wheels still need to be modified?" Jiang Pengji said, "Of course it has to be modified." When asked about professional issues, Bai Yuexia naturally had to clarify. What does it have to be modified? The production of a spinning wheel is complicated, but there is only one spindle. Why can't we increase the number of spindles? Jiang Pengji said, "Instead of using 10 looms to make up 10 spindles, why not put 10 spindles on one machine? Won't there be more silk produced at the same time?" This simple sentence immediately caused the two disciples of the Mo family to be dumbfounded. What was this called? The Lord moved her mouth, and the subordinates ran errands. Put 10 spindles on one machine and let the spindles work at the same time? Was this possible? Apart from the spinning wheels, Jiang Pengji also wanted them to improve the looms. The efficiency of the current looms was very low, and they basically used both hands. But why not improve the looms so that both hands and feet could work? Zhang Ping and Bai Yuexia were bombarded with questions one after another until they were dizzy. They wished that their parents could give them 2 more heads. The key was that they could not refute. Although the Lord's questions sounded very naive and unreasonable, these questions were like an omnipotent key that immediately unlocked the iron lock that imprisoned their thoughts and provided them with brand new research ideas. But there was another problem. What was the point of them working on the spinning wheels and looms? Where did they get so much yarn and cloth to weave? Reality proved that there was. Another joyous event followed. The newly married Feng Zhen pinched his chin. He only knew that his new wife was imitating Ancestor Lei and doing big things. Ancestor Lei had invented silkworm rearing, while Wan Xiao was planting cotton. Before they got married, Wan Xiao had specially brought some people to the ancestral home and stayed there to do something. She did not hide these things from Feng Zhen, so he was more or less in the know. However, he had never expected that his wife would follow in his master's footsteps. She had killed the big thing without saying a word. A pillow comes when you doze off. Zisher, your wife is much more capable than you. Feng Zhen was dumbfounded and secretly touched his nose. What did he do? He was definitely more capable than his wife. But he could not speak carelessly in front of the Lord, so he obediently served as Wan Xiao's foil. Jiang Pengji looked at the card of information that Wan Xiao had brought. The content was very detailed. She laughed and teased. With this, even if you can't be compared to Ancestor Lei, it's more than enough to earn the title of Little Ancestor Lei. If it succeeds, I will definitely remember your great merit. Wan Xiao's heart leaped with joy. 2 good things were reported one after the other. Jiang Pengji was in a good mood, but there was always someone who did not have eyes to provoke her. Chapter 1245. Dongqing had a total of 6 states and 21 counties. Its territory spanned from the north to the south. The division of states and counties mostly followed the previous dynasty and was not based on population or land area. As a result, although Hu County, Zhe County, and Hu County were counties, the areas of the 3 counties were not small. Hu County was even comparable to the smallest state in Dongqing. Apart from these 3 special counties, Hejian County, Langjie County, and Ningning County were also independent counties. However, the size of the latter 3 was quite normal. Apart from having special military positions, they were no different from ordinary counties. Langya County had already fallen under Huang Song's rule. Ningning County was located in the south and had previously submitted to Su Bei. Ever since Jiang Pingji had gotten rid of Su Bei, although she hadn't mobilized her troops in Gongning County, the local aristocrats were very tactful and didn't dare to cause a ruckus. It was useless for them to make a ruckus. Jiangning County was attached to a high mountain range. Although it was a beautiful place, it did not produce much food. Jiang Pengji sent troops to choke off all the grain and trade routes in Jiangning County. She could starve hundreds of thousands of people in Jiangning County to death. There were many aristocratic families in Yunning County. They saw that Jiang Pengji was not someone to be trifled with, so they did not go against the law and fight her head-on. Instead, they chose to give in. Among the 3 counties, Hejian County was the only one without a ruler. It wasn't that Hejian County didn't want to rely on any vassal. It was just that the geography of Hejian County was a bit awkward. It was located on the pulse arteries of Wanzhou, Haozhou, and Sangzhou. It was an important position that could be used to attack or defend. Before the spring plowing, neither Jiang Pengji nor Huang Song dared to mobilize their troops in Hejian County. Once the troops were mobilized, it would be a great war. If the spring plowing was ruined, not only would the interests of the 2 feudal vassals be harmed, but the people under their rule would also be harmed. Wars could be fought at any time, but the commoners only had one chance to farm. If they missed the opportunity, they would have to endure hunger for an entire year. Apart from that, Hejian County had another significance to Jiang Pingji. All the members of the Liu family lived in Hejian County. The bad news Jiang Pingji received was none other than the fact that Hejian County had been raided by Huang Song's army and had quietly changed hands in the middle of the night. When the bad news reached Jiang Pingji's ears, she was happy about the progress of the spinning wheel and the cotton. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. Those who were familiar with Jiang Pingji did not dare to look at her expression. How did Hejian County fall? After the battle between Su and Pei ended, Jiang Pengji and Huang Song tacitly dispatched troops to guard the northern and southern borders of Hejian County. Neither side gave in to the other. The 2 sides maintained a delicate balance. No one dared to make the first move. They could only dispatch many scouts to investigate the enemy situation. They had to grasp the military situation as soon as possible. Under such circumstances, Jiang Pengji did not know what the guards were doing. Huang Song had already sent his troops to conquer the whole of Hejian County, but the defending general was slow to react. It was already too late. If he didn't give her a convincing reason, she would definitely punish him. Although Jiang Pengji was usually easy to get along with, once she got angry, how could a lowly messenger be able to withstand her power? Without any hesitation, he revealed everything that had happened. After he finished speaking, the messenger's soldier trembled and half knelt down to beg for forgiveness. The atmosphere at the scene was extremely solemn. Qiguan Rang, Wei Siai, and the others secretly glanced at their lord from the corner of their eyes. They were mentally prepared for their lord to flip the table, curse Huang Song's ancestors. Even if they lost control of themselves, they could still suppress this matter. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pengji's self-restraint was excellent. Apart from her somewhat gloomy expression, she did not show any extreme emotions. Hejian Zhang, Jiang Pengji sneered coldly. Her eyes flashed with murderous intent. They really got away with it back then. The main reason why Hejian County was lost was that Hejian's aristocratic family, the Zhangs, took the lead in responding to the persuasion of Huang Song subordinates. They secretly colluded with several aristocratic families to control the situation in the county. Later, on the night of the 24th of the 3rd month, they cooperated with Huang Song's garrison troops. On one hand, they took down the Hejian's Lus, Shangwans, and other aristocratic families that were friendly with Jiang Pengji's forces. On the other hand, they welcomed Huang Song's army into the city. In less than half a night, Hejian County changed hands. When everyone heard Jiang Pengji's words, they were momentarily stunned. They did not know when their lord and the Zhangs had discord. Others had yet to react, but Li Yun felt that the Zhang's name sounded very familiar. After thinking about it carefully, his mind flashed. He finally remembered when the feud had started. This Zhang's name seemed somewhat familiar. Could it be the Zhangs who forced my wife to become a widow and almost caused her to lose her life? Li Yun remembered that the Zhang's family was Shang Wanwan's ex-husband's family. After the feud started, could it be that they still bear a grudge? When Huang Song found out about it, he used it as a breakthrough point and sent people to persuade the Zhangs to change sides. If you think about it that way, it's not unreasonable. As soon as Li Yun spoke, everyone focused their attention on him again. After hearing what he said, many people had some memories. They followed the clues and dug up the old story. It's most likely because of this. Jiang Pengji secretly curled her lips and laughed angrily. We should have skinned this clan alive back then. Qiguan Rang and Wei Ci coughed in unison, reminding Jiang Pengji to watch her words and not be so violent. If word got out that she skinned a clan for no reason, she would be hated by the enemy's navy. No matter what the situation was back then, it was an indisputable fact that Jiang Pengji had taken in the Zhang's young mistress who had escaped. Later, she had acted as a matchmaker for the young mistress, Shang Wanwan, and the military general, Li Yun. In the eyes of the Zhangs, this cuckold was dripping with oil. The grassland on her head could be used to race horses. Although the Zhangs had no solid evidence that Jiang Pengji had stolen Shang Wanwan, the whole world knew that Shang Wanwan had remarried Li Yun. From this standpoint, the Zhangs and Jiang Pengji's positions were natural opposites. Rather than helplessly watch Hajin County fall into Jiang Pengji's hands and struggle at death's door under her tyranny, it was better to support Huang Song. There was nothing wrong with this logic. Even so, if no one had secretly planned and promoted it, the Zhangs wouldn't have been so thorough. Yang Si looked at Li Yun with some pity in his eyes. As expected, it was better to be single. Shang Wanwan was also a victim, but if Li Yun met an unreasonable lord, he would most likely vent his anger on her. Jiang Pengji asked the messenger, "Do you know who the lobbyist is?" The messenger said, "According to the secret agents, it's a strategist with the surname Chung under Huang Song's command." According to the information obtained by the secret agents, before Hejin County fell, there was indeed a man who was dressed ordinarily but had an outstanding appearance and entered the Zhang residence. Chung, there was only one strategist with the surname Chung under Huang Song's command, right? Everyone tacitly looked at Chung Yuan from the corner of their eyes. Chung Yuan's father, Chung, was Chung Jing's nephew, and Chung Yuan was Chung Jing's grandnephew. The age difference wasn't big, but the seniority was significant. Jiang Pengji said disdainfully, "If it's Yumo, it's not surprising. The Zhang's been around for so many years, but she's still half dead. Her brain isn't that good either, and she's very easy to fool." This grudge could only be regarded as a catalyst. The person Huang Song had sent over, the lobbyist Chung Jing, was the most important one. Chapter 1246. Jiang Pengji had a rough idea of what Mrs. Zhang was thinking. If Jiang Pengji won and Mrs. Zhang worked for her in the future, Jiang Pengji would definitely hold a grudge against Mrs. Zhang, and the Zhang family would never have a chance to make a name for themselves. Magnifying the conflict in the past made Mrs. Zhang, who was already arrogant, even more arrogant. It seemed that Jiang Pengji still held a grudge against her. But in reality, Jiang Pengji was a busy person. Not every Tom, Dick, or Harry was qualified to occupy her brain. If Mrs. Zhang didn't jump out to make her presence known, how could she remember such a small role? She couldn't even remember her, let alone hold a grudge against Mrs. Zhang. She really thought she was somebody. Whether it was Mrs. Zhang and Hajian or Han Yu's wife, they were like dust at her eyes. They were not worthy of her special attention. Although Mrs. Zhang is smart, she doesn't have a big picture view. Besides, there was discord before, so it was expected that they would be persuaded by Yumo to change sides. Jiang Pengji had a low opinion of Mrs. Zhang, but she had a high opinion of Chung Jing. By the way, have you found out the current situation of the Liu family? Although the second branch and the main family are not on good terms, the Liu family is more or less involved because of me. Cheng Jing was a cautious person. He persuaded Mrs. Zhang to change sides and gave her a series of ideas to help her avoid the attention of Jiang Pengji's troops. Hejian County was Jiang Pengji's original nest. She had almost no contact with the Liu family in recent years, but outsiders would not think that she was completely cut off from the Liu family because of that. If something big happened, the Liu family would definitely side with Jiang Pengji. In a place like Hejian County, the Liu family was Jiang Pengji's most natural eyes and ears. To seize Hejian County first, Mrs. Zhang's little tricks had to be avoided by the Liu family. Just in case, the Liu family, the Shangwan family, and other small gentry families who were close to Jiang Pengji were also taken down in a flash. After all, Jiang Pengji was the one who brought the disaster to the Liu family, so she had to ask about it. The messenger was not very clear about the news. However, according to the spy in Hejian County, the Liu family was strictly monitored. Their personal freedom was restricted, but their lives were not in danger. Jiang Pengji said, "I understand. You can go now. If there's any news, report to me immediately." Everyone knew that Huang Song would not harm the Liu clan now, but that did not mean he would not do so in the future. Jiang Pengji did not have a family. Other than Liu Shi and Liu Zhao, her blood relatives were only the members of the Liu family. According to the mainstream thinking nowadays, people with the same surname and ancestry were a family. Even if the bones were broken, the tendons would still be connected. Unless it was a subsect, it was a single entity. If Huang Song wanted to use the people of the Liu clan as a political bargaining chip, Jiang Pengji's side would be very passive, and her hands and feet would be tied in battle. Faced with such a predicament, Jiang Pengji had to come up with a solution as soon as possible. This matter is indeed difficult to deal with. It's better to do it sooner rather than later. Do you have any good ideas? Jiang Pengji knitted her brows tightly, seemingly distressed. She asked the people sitting below. Hejian County was the main route between Wanzhou, Sangzhou, and Haozhou. Whoever occupied this place first would have the advantage of dispatching troops. Huang Song had taken over Hejian County and encircled the Liu clan. He had the upper hand right from the start. Jiang Pengji could only deal with it passively. Everything had to be dealt with one by one. Jiang Pengji planned to deal with the Liu clan's matter first. Although Hejian County was important, it was not impossible to take it back. Huang Song was probably also observing her reaction, using it to determine what his next move would be. The general's thoughts were relatively simple. Regardless of whether it was Huang Song or Liu Song, the clan that dared to imprison the Lord would be punished in 4 words. CK them up. It was simple, crude, and straightforward. However, this method was obviously not feasible. Or rather, this was not the method that Jiang Pengji had in mind. The audience in the streaming room had followed the streaming room for so many years. They had some understanding of Jiang Pengji's character. To use the words of many years ago to mock Jiang Pengji, she was a profiteer and strategist who had been held back by her profession. Even though her schemes were not as thorough and perfect as other strategists, no one could compare to her in terms of the overall situation. Didn't you see that there were often strategists who asked her, "What is the Lord's intention?" Lao Sijilianmeng. Betting on the spicy sticks that we have stocked up for the new year at home, the streamer must have a certain B*TCH in her heart. Walking Shuaba. My head hurts. Every time I watch the streaming room, I have the thrill of being crushed in my IQ. Zhang, Xiao Xiao's wife. Let's start the game. Let's bet on what the streamer is up to. The person who guesses correctly can split the spicy sticks that Lao Siju Lianming has stocked up for the new year. The opportunity cannot be missed. Don't miss it. It's a once-in-a-year opportunity. Jiang Pengji's train of thought was well known to be unique and beautiful. The idle people were not top-notch strategists, so they could not figure out her thoughts. Many idle people simply chose to ask for help outside the game. They stared at the faces of the strategists, trying to see the correct answer from their faces. After staring for a while, many idle people wailed in the bullet screen. Qingshun, it's over. Boss Wen Zheng and the others looked troubled. This question is definitely beyond the syllabus. Shinua, underscore, smiley face, angle, underscore, this question is so difficult. Can a streamer give us some hints? Tangerine soft candy. If I were a member of the overtime team, I would definitely curse in my heart. I feel that the streamer already has an idea, but she refuses to say it directly. Instead, she wants to make it difficult for the big shots to guess a game that they can't guess. Guess your sister. What's there to say that can't be said in front of everyone? Why do you have to keep people guessing? What a waste of time and effort. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that many leaders had such a bad habit. This made it difficult for the subordinates. At this moment, the idle people noticed that Yang Si, who was sitting in the second row, relaxed his brows. His gaze was deep and complicated. Ziyu at Tianyi, my cutie Rong Rong, seems to have solved the answer. While the audience in the streaming room chatted, people raised suggestions one after another. However, most of them were not feasible and were rejected by Jiang Pengji. Everyone was in a dilemma. Even C.I. Meirun, who was known as the flower of understanding, was frowning. He did not know how to deal with it. Is there no other way? At this moment, Yang Si stepped forward and cupped his hands in front of his chest. He proposed a bad idea that struck everyone present like lightning. He said, I have a plan, but I don't know if I should say it. It's better to eliminate this disaster from the root. Jiang Pengji said, speak. Yang Si said, I think it's better to eliminate this disaster from the root. Jiang Pengji's interest was piqued, but her expression remained calm. She asked in detail how my lord was born in the Liu family of Hejian. The rise and fall of honor and disgrace are one with the clan. If the clan prospers, my lord will prosper. If the clan declines, my lord will lose face. Now that the Liu family has encountered this disaster, half of the responsibility lies with my lord. You should step forward to solve this matter and protect the clan. However, the situation in the world is grim. Not only do you have to worry about the clan, but you also have to worry about the people under your rule. You can't act recklessly for your own selfishness. Yang Si spoke in a rhythmic tone. Everyone frowned when they heard him. Their lord had always disliked listening to this nonsense. If she had such a good relationship with the Liu family, why would they not contact each other for so many years? She had never helped any member of the Liu family. Chapter 1247. Everyone was suspicious. Jiang Pengji patiently asked Yang Si, does Jingrong have any wise ideas? Yang Si changed the topic. In my opinion, my lord, you might as well bear the pain and form your own clan. Even if you are reluctant, this will not only protect the Liu clan, but it will also prevent Huang Song from harming them. At the same time, it will also prevent my lord from being afraid of the slightest thing. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Pengji decisively rejected his suggestion. Her tone was a little harsh, and her expression was quite decisive. Yang Jingrong, your suggestion is really heart-wrenching. It's very inappropriate. In this era where the clan was supreme, splitting the clan was the most important thing. Unless they had no other choice, very few people would choose to split the clan. Those who suggested splitting the clan would easily be labeled with a bad reputation. For ordinary gentry, there were many disadvantages to splitting the clan. First was the clan fields. The common land shared by the clan members was divided into more than 10 categories, such as fields for ancestral halls, fields for temples, fields for graves, fields for sacrifices, fields for charity, fields for learning. Every clan member could enjoy the benefits of the fields. It was somewhat similar to the family property that the idle viewers knew. If the clan split, they could not enjoy this part of the benefits. They could only take their private property with them. Second was the clan school. After the clan split, unless there were special circumstances, the people who split were not entitled to free education. It was not easy to study in this era. Learning was a benefit that only a certain class could enjoy. Splitting the clan meant giving up this part of the right. Apart from these two major items, there were many other public benefits. Why were the gentry so united and protected the clan? Because protecting the clan's interests was protecting their own interests. Leaving the clan as a whole, the possibility of an individual developing on his own was almost zero. Therefore, Many members of the branch families of the gentry lived in poverty and had no choice but to accept the subsistence aid given by the clan. Even so, they still regarded themselves as a cut above others, because they were born to enjoy the benefits that ordinary people could not enjoy. This was their inherent privilege. Jiang Pengji was not an ordinary person. Splitting the clan would not affect her, but according to the current mainstream thinking, splitting the clan was wrong. Wei Yin was sick. Little Rong suggestion is fine, right? The streamer looks so fierce. I've never seen her so fierce. Tudu Feichio. The person above is still too young. The streamer's anger on the surface is definitely not real. When Jiang Pengji is really angry, can ordinary people withstand that aura? They could feel the murderous aura, even though they were separated by planes. Sovereign descends the world. Splitting a sect is the same as splitting a family, right? It's not a big deal. Why Yuchen Wang? How can splitting a sect be the same as splitting a family? The latter was just to live a simple life, while the former was to cut off the ancestral genealogy. In ancient times, if it wasn't for a very strong reason, people would definitely criticize them. The ancient people cared a lot about face. Many salted fish felt that Yang Xi's suggestion was to roast Jiang Pengji over the fire. The bullet screen in the streaming room was in a heated discussion. Jiang Pengji also had new developments. Yang Xi seemed to be determined to fight with her. He tried his best to persuade her, looking as if he would not let her go if she did not agree. My lord, this is an extremely urgent matter. How can you hesitate? If we want to break out of this situation without bloodshed, splitting the sect is definitely the best way. Yang Xi tried to persuade her again and again, but Jiang Pengji said no, so he changed his method of coaxing her. After a few rounds, Jiang Pengji's tough attitude softened. Seeing this, if the crowd still did not understand, there was really something wrong with their intelligence. Wei Ci stepped forward and said, I think that although Jing Rong's words are inappropriate, it is also the safest method at the moment. My lord is not only a member of the Liu family, but also the common ruler of millions of people in the 4 prefectures. How can you disregard the safety of millions of people for your own selfish reasons? My lord is really doing this for the good of the Liu family. At this time, she should cut the Gordian knot with a knife. Splitting the sect. After splitting the sect, Jiang Pengji and the Liu family would not have much of a relationship. Huangsong could not use the Liu family to threaten her. As long as the Liu family did not make a big mistake and was caught by Huangsong, the lives of the old and young of the family would be guaranteed. Wei Ci jumped out to speak. Qiguan Rang and Feng Zhen also added fuel to the fire. Although Feng Jin and Cheng Yuan were a beat slower, they also followed suit. The current situation had become that everyone was forcing Jiang Pengji to split the sect, but she missed the clan and could not bear to part with her kin, so she refused to comply. After confronting for half a quarter of an hour, Jiang Pengji still gave in under pressure. Gave in under pressure? Their streamer gave in? Did the sun rise from the west? The idle people in the streaming room were dumbfounded. When everyone ganged up on them, they thought that these subordinates were going to rebel. They dared to force their streamer. Unforgivable. They turned their heads and carefully recalled the contents of the conversation. Only then did they realize this was a F***king shameless show. Flips the table. Swoosh. Swoosh. Tudu Feichio. The streamer and her overtime team have once again broken the bottom line. It was clear that they wanted to kick the Liu family aside and work alone. How to become the Liu family bearing the pain of splitting the sect? I dare to bet 10 packs of spicy sticks. The streamer's face is very sad, but she is already laughing in her heart. Guokai Guo Fengxiu. Hee blossoming? It should be the blossoming of 100 flowers. I can wake up laughing in the middle of the night. They are still too young. Facing Jiang Pengji and the overtime team, who have no moral integrity and no bottom line, there's only what others can't think of, there's nothing they can't do. Lao Siji Lianming. I finally understand why it was Xiao Rong who came out to persuade the streamer to split the sect. Do you remember that when the streamer was fighting the Gaiwa clan in Sangzhou, She once designed a cute panda avatar. She accidentally let it slip in front of Xiao Rong that she wanted to use the panda image as a future battle flag or clan emblem. F*CK. She F*King wanted to work alone since then. Even the apprehensive flower, Wei Ci, could not guess Jiang Pingji's thoughts at that moment. Only Yang Si guessed it correctly. Why? This old fellow has seen the answers in the examination papers. Tudu Fei Qiu. The person above remembered it very carefully, but I think the streamer probably wanted to work alone from the beginning. If you pay close attention, have you noticed how many times the Liu family has appeared in her streaming for so many years? When she was most short of manpower, she never thought of asking the Liu family for help. She always left them in the lurch. The streamer is really sociopathic. We are far inferior to her. The idle spectators discussed and finally solved the case, finding the answer to the mystery. Jiang Pengji looked helpless. Her face was pale and sad. She was forced to accept the proposal of splitting the sect. Let's split the sect. I can't implicate the whole clan because of me. If the whole clan dies because of me, I won't be able to face my ancestors 100 years later. The news of Jiang Pengji wanting to split the sect spread like wildfire. The outside world had different opinions. Lu Zhao panicked and smashed his teacup. The matter of splitting the sect is very important. Sister, do you need to inform father? Jiang Pengji looked at the greenery outside the window and smiled. Chapter 1248. Split it from my sister? Lu Zhao was shocked, as if he was stunned by Jiang Pengji's words. If they split it from Jiang Pengji, wouldn't it be equivalent to her leaving the family with nothing? From an outsider's point of view, Jiang Pengji's father and brothers were still alive, and Lu Zhao was still unmarried. Such a division would be criticized. Jiang Pengji had her own reasons. From her point of view, she did it for the good of Lu Shi and Lu Zhao. She explained, if Bogeo hadn't suddenly attacked Hejin County and imprisoned the Liu clan, I wouldn't have to do this. Splitting the family is a big deal. I'm a female in the clan, so it's not a big deal. My father is the head of the second branch, and you're the only male descendant of the second branch. How can you just split the family? After thinking about it, I decided to split it by myself. If Bogeo knows about this, he won't target the Liu clan anymore. Jiang Pengji mentioned the word female again. According to the current trend, women were born to marry. Although they didn't have to change their names, they had to use their husband's family name in front of them. For example, Qiguan Rang's wife's surname was Wei, and she was addressed as Qiguan Weisher. From this point of view, although Jiang Pengji would leave the family with nothing, it could also be regarded as marrying out in advance. Anyway, she was a woman, and sooner or later, women had to marry and become part of someone else's family. It didn't seem to matter much whether Jiang Pengji split the family or not. Jiang Pengji didn't care, but Lu Shi and Lu Zhao were different. My grudge with Bogeo was caused by me. How can I implicate my father and the clan? Moreover, time is of the essence, and I don't have extra time to inform my father. If I specifically inform him to discuss the division, it'll be too late. After thinking about it, it's safer to start with me. Jiang Pengji's words made sense, and Lu Zhao couldn't find a way to refute her, because Jiang Pengji always considered Lu Shi his father and the Liu clan. There was nothing wrong with her logic. However, Lu Zhao knew very well that the person in front of him wouldn't be so kind. Splitting the family was probably an idea she had been plotting for a long time. Huang Song seemed to be attacking her, but he didn't know that it was a good opportunity to help her succeed. Jiang Pengji saw that Lu Zhao looked worried, and she asked him with a smile, "Zhao, are you worried?" Lu Zhao said, "Elder sister, you're wise and resourceful. Others might think of one step, but you've already taken 100 steps. What's there for me to worry about?" Although Jiang Pengji did not treat Lu Zhao as a blood relative, she still included him under her wing and protected him as a younger brother. "There are some things that I'm not afraid to tell you," she said. "Although you like to have fun, you've also read a lot of books. You should know that there's a saying that goes, 'The tale is bound to be broken but the tale is too big to fall. The Lu clan was very peaceful now, but that was only for now. How could they maintain their original intentions in the future? For the sake of eradicating future threats, and also to protect the Lu clan, there are some powers that they shouldn't touch. The power of power was too great. Anyone in front of it would become unrecognizable. Jiang Pengji did not change because she looked down on it. Among the power in the world, she was only interested in the position of the Marshal of the Federation. She wouldn't change her mind, but Madame Lu might not. Lu Zhao's expression was extremely complicated. In the end, he forced a smile and tried to smooth things over. Sister, you've thought far ahead. I'm ashamed of myself. Others misunderstood that Jiang Pengji was doing this for the good of the Lu family. But Lu Zhao knew very well that it was a preparation for a showdown in the future. Since Lu Zhao didn't have any opinions, the others were even less qualified to express their opinions. Old Master Lu Shi, who was most qualified to voice his opinion, was still enjoying his retirement in Chongzhou. When there is no tiger in the mountain, the monkey will be the king. Jiang Pengji had the final say in everything. The matter of the separation of the schools flew out of Wanzhou. All the scholars in the world were shocked, and Huang Song was even more shocked and angry. He flipped over 2 tables in private. She chose to split into schools. Huang Song's eyes widened in shock. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said, "Lanting's tactics are really surprising. She doesn't want to be at a disadvantage." As soon as Madame Lu fell into my hands, she immediately chose to sever all ties with her. If it was an ordinary branch, the steps would be very complicated. It would require the clan leader and the clan elders to open the ancestral hall and invite out the clan records. There would be a lot of twists and turns. Now that the entire Lu clan had been captured by Huang Song, it was naturally impossible for them to open an ancestral shrine and request for a genealogical record. Extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures. Special circumstances require special treatment. Jiang Pengji's announcement to the world's branches had a similar effect. Huang Song originally wanted to use Madame Lu as a trump card to restrain Jiang Pengji, but he didn't expect her to be so decisive. Cutting a tangled knot with a knife. Master Lanting's temperament is indeed incomparable to that of ordinary people. Cheng Jing shook his head when he heard that. It was his idea to seize Hejian County and confine Madame Lu. Everything was going well, but who knew that Jiang Pengji would act irrationally and directly choose to split into schools to draw a clear line? If she were a man, I'm afraid she would be criticized for her actions. Unfortunately, she's a woman. Jiang Pengji had suffered for so many years because of her gender. Finally, she gained an advantage. Huang Song said regretfully, "Now we can't use Madame Lu to restrain her." Cheng Jing shook his head and said, "As long as Madame Lu doesn't take the initiative to cause trouble, I'm afraid the Lord can't do anything to them. If Madame Lu wasn't a gentry family, killing them would not be a big deal. At most, it would make Jiang Pengji hate them. However, Madame Lu was a proper gentry family. No gentry family in the world would agree to kill them without a good excuse." Thinking back to the past, when Jiang Pengji reorganized the gentry families in Chongzhou, she also put a lot of *T on them before taking action. Feng Zhu asked, "Does the Lu family know about this news?" Cheng Jing answered, "Probably not yet, but they will know soon." Madame Lu's people were all imprisoned in the clan land. Their range of activities was restricted, so it was not easy for them to receive news from the outside world. They would only know about Jiang Pengji's division after a while. Feng Zhu said, "If Madame Lu knows about this, I wonder how she will react." His seemingly unintentional words fell into the ears of Huang Song and the others, and they had a different interpretation of it. Cheng Jing asked, "Why'd you means? To instigate Madame Lu to defect?" Madame Lu isn't as stupid as Madame Zhang. Even if Lu Shi's division leaves, Madame Lu won't fall out with him. They aren't that easy to drive a wedge between them. Feng Zhu smiled and shook his head. "There's just one thing I don't understand. Why is Lu Shi and Madame Lu's relationship so bad? Even if they said it was for Madame Lu's good, Those words could only deceive ordinary people. How could a truly intelligent person be fooled? Rather than saying that the division was for Madame Lu's safety, it was more like getting rid of Madame Lu's burden. Feng Zhu thought that the latter was more likely. Children of gentry families received clan education from a young age. If it wasn't for special circumstances, why wouldn't they side with the clan? It was rare to see someone like Jiang Pengji, who ran away when the situation wasn't good. What was the hidden reason behind it? Feng Zhu took it to heart. Chapter 1249. Ever since Hejian County was conquered by Huang Song, the Lus had been living in seclusion. They refused all activities and invitations. Hearing that Jiang Pengji was independent, the Lus were calmer than the outside world. The reason was that Jiang Pengji and the Lus had little contact in the past few years. She didn't ask for help from the family when she was in danger, and she didn't help the family during her glory days. At first, the Lus were a little uncomfortable, but they understood after a while. Jiang Pengji was rich and never thought of giving benefits to the family. They couldn't be thick-skinned and stick to her. A few elders reacted fiercely. They were angry at Jiang Pengji's behavior. The Lus didn't enjoy the benefits Jiang Pengji gave them. Instead, they made the family suffer. Now that they were in trouble, they kicked the family away. What a heartless woman! A gray-haired elder sneered and said sarcastically, like father, like daughter. Lu Shi's parents, Lu Shi, were the same. They guarded against the family like thieves. Lu Shi and his wife didn't use their brains to think. If the Lus didn't support them, how could the second branch take over the entire bamboo paper workshop? Their daughter is also an ungrateful wretch. Although the bamboo paper workshop was built by Gu Min with her dowry, didn't the resources she used come from the family? Gu Min improved the existing rough paper-making technology. The bamboo paper in Hejian became a treasure that the upper-class families fought to purchase. The profits were shocking. They didn't covet a mere paper-making and cooking, but Gu Min monopolized all the profits. It was unsightly. Logically speaking, she should donate some of the profits to the family. Only when the family was strong could they protect the family. How many years has it been? Why are you still bringing it up? Another gray-haired elder frowned. Although it's a bit heartless, Lu Shi did it to protect the whole family. Even if the family is divided, the ancestor is still the same ancestor. Money, power, and status were precious, but compared to one's life was more important. Why can't we bring it up? It's not like you don't know the current situation of the clan. The white-haired elder rolled his eyes, still angry. The assets of a mere second branch is much more than the public property of the clan. The family has nurtured them for so many years, but they don't know how to return the favor. There was a thunderstorm a while ago. The eaves of the ancestral hall have been in disrepair, and the ancestral tablets were almost wet. The family school is not doing well either. My great-grandson said that the food provided by the family school is not tasty. The gray-haired clan elder said, "This is because the clan's harvest is not good. The clan's accounts have been in deficit for years, and the clan leader is also worried. That's true. But if Lu Shi and his daughter can help the clan..." Thinking of this, the clan elder became even angrier. The clan raised them, so it was only right that they return the favor. Now, one or two of them were ingrates. Who wouldn't feel stifled? The situation is stronger than the person. Can you force the father and daughter? The gray-haired elder rolled his eyes. Moreover, it was Lu Shi, not Lu Shi. Both branches of the Shi family were separated from the Lu family. The gray-haired elder rolled his eyes. Besides, it was Lu Shi who separated the family. She is a woman. She has to marry someone. Marry? Won't her assets be taken by others? Do you want her to marry someone from the same clan? Calm down. People will think that the family covets the assets of a woman. That's shameful. Marrying someone with the same surname is against ethics. The gray-haired elder was full of anger. He didn't feel comfortable. The gentry family was glamorous to the outside world, but the resources were limited. It was impossible for every family to live a carefree life. As more and more people were born, there were fewer and fewer things that no one could share. This was one of the reasons why many gentry families were getting worse and worse. The huge population was not a help. Instead, it became a burden that couldn't be gotten rid of. The Liu family was not a first-class family in Hejin County. At most, it was a second-class family. The direct line of descent was still considered well off, but the side branches outside of the Five Kingdoms were very poor, and the clan could only barely help them. Liu Shi was the second branch of the direct descendants. His wealth was more than the family property. How could the other family members not be jealous? If the property was not the private property of Liu Shi and his wife, and Liu Shi was capable, some people might have forced them to confiscate the property. Jiang Pengji was even more powerful. The northern borderline had been hers for a few years. Most of Dongqing's land had been in her pocket. She just needed to wear the imperial robe to rule the world. As long as she was willing, she could reveal her intentions and help the talented people from the Liu family. When one person achieved the Tao, even the dogs and chickens of the Liu family would rise to heaven. But now they had to separate and draw a line. It would be strange if some of the Liu family members felt comfortable. Why wouldn't they help the family members if they were so rich? Jiang Pengji would marry someone in the future. Wouldn't it be better to help the family members than outsiders? Even if they knew it was wrong and shameful, they couldn't accept it emotionally. The two elders talked for a while. Their brows were furrowed with worry. They were worried, but Liu Zhai, the leader of the Liu family and Liu Shi's elder brother, was even more worried. Ever since Jiang Pengji and Huang Song stationed their troops in the north and south of Hejin County and confronted each other, he knew his family was in trouble. He didn't expect the trouble to come so quickly and so urgently. The Zhang family in Hejin betrayed the Liu family, which caught him off guard. "Father, the children in the family are talking about it. Do we really not have to stop it?" Liu Heng, who was about to enter his 30s, frowned, leaving a shallow wrinkle between his brows. If Jiang Pengji was there, she might have lamented that time and tied weight for no man. Liu Heng, who was elegant and funny in the past, was now a mature and steady middle-aged man. "How do you explain it?" Liu Zhai was worried. "Let them be." Liu Zhai was much older than Liu Shi. His hair had been dyed gray. He looked slightly old. If he didn't have good temperament, he would probably look older. "If I don't do anything, my cousin will really break with the family." Liu Heng still liked his cousin very much. But after the incident at the flower festival when she was 12, her personality changed drastically. Not only did she not get close to him, but she also didn't give him gifts during the 4 seasons and 8 festivals. The relationship between the first and second branch had become as thin as plain water. Liu Zhai smiled bitterly. Break up a long time ago. That year when my second brother went to Hu County, he asked his relatives to move out of the family land. From then on, we didn't have any contact. I'm not surprised that Lanting took the opportunity to break up with the family. As he spoke, there was a sound of crutches hitting the ground and many footsteps. "What's wrong? You're blaming me now?" Chapter 1250. Liu Zhai heard his mother's words and quickly got up to greet her. He humbled himself, but the old lord did not let it go. Liu Zhai had to explain himself. "Mother, you are putting me in a difficult position. What have I ever complained about you?" Liu Heng also stood up to greet his grandmother. With the help of the father and son, the old lady sat down in the seat of honor. She had lived like a princess for many years. Although she was old, her skin was fair and she looked younger than her actual age. However, her face was slightly mean and her eyes were narrow and sharp. She looked like an old lady who was not easy to get along with. She was Liu Zhai and Liu Shi's mother, the ancestor of the Liu family and the old lord of Changsha. She was furious when she heard that Jiang Pengji dared to divide the family. She hurried to discuss it with her eldest son. She did not expect to hear the conversation before she entered the door. She was even angrier. I heard that the second branch has an unfilial girl." The old lord was old, but his voice was loud. When he talked about his granddaughter, Jiang Pengji, who he had never met before, his expression became sharper. "She is over 20 years old and still hasn't gotten married. Now, she wants to divide the family. As the head of the family, why didn't you write a letter to reprimand her? How can you allow a girl to make a scene in front of you? Do you have any rules in your family? Lu Zhai could only smile bitterly. How would the old lord know the influence of the Lu family in the outside world? The ancestors of the Lu family have been glorious for a while, but they have been going downhill for the past 100 years. They were able to hang on to the second-rate position in Hejian mostly because of Lu Shi. Compared to Lu Shi, Jiang Pengji was more powerful. What could the Lu family do to make her obey? Mother, it is not as bad as you think. Lanting separated from the family for the sake of the family. Hejian County is now in Huang Song's hands. Huang Song and Lanting are rivals. If Lanting does not separate from the family and cut ties, Huang Song will use the lives of the Lu family to threaten Lanting. If she separates from the family, Huang Song will have no reason to do anything to the Lu family. This is also the child's filial piety, Lu Zhai said gently. She tried to persuade her mother. Lu Zhai and Lu Shi's mother came from a prominent family in Langyi County. She and Gu Min's mother were cousins. Because of her noble birth, the old woman had been willful all her life. She had developed a strong and reckless personality when she was a girl. She always liked to force others to do what she wanted. She lived a free and easy life, but the people around her were almost driven crazy by her. A recent example was Lu Shi and his wife. As soon as Lu Gui finished speaking, the old Feng Jun waved his hand away. Stop saying nice things to that unfilial girl. It's fine to coax an idiot, but what's the use of coaxing me? Although this old woman is old, her mind is not muddled. Lu Shi is clearly unfilial to his elders and heartless to his clan. The old woman's eyes widened, revealing the whites of her eyes. Just looking at her made one shiver in fear. If she says that the sect will be independent, then the sect will be divided. Where will the face of the entire clan be? Gumin really gave birth to A.B. Astrastard. First, she instigated her man to go against me, and now she has raised an unfilial daughter that disgraces our clan. The old woman was raised with honor. She also heard that her granddaughter was capable, but she didn't like her. Instead, she hated her. It wasn't that Lu Shi was bad, but it was because of some old scores. The old woman and Gu Min's mother were cousins. They were equally important in the clan. At that time, the atmosphere between the sexes was still very open. It was normal for unmarried girls to have a sweetheart before marriage. When the old woman was young, she liked young and handsome scholars. Occasionally, she would have trysts with them under the moonlight. After all, she was born in a big clan. If her reputation was too bad before marriage, it would affect her marriage, so she was very careful. However, Gu Min's mother, her cousin, was more skillful. During the marriage discussion, she tricked her and let others see her exchanging a token with a scholar. This matter was fatal, but also affected her status. The marriage discussion went wrong. In the end, Gu Min's mother married into the Langya clan and became the wife of the clan. Everyone envied her, but she married a son of the Lu clan in Hejian County. After marriage, she was not as good as her cousin. She never thought that the daughter of her cousin, Gu Min, would marry her second son, Lu Shi. Every time she saw her daughter-in-law, she felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in her throat. She didn't like Gu Min either. In her opinion, Gu Min was the culprit who instigated the separation between her and Lu Shi. After Gu Min got married, she became restless. She started a business and showed her face in public. Her business was big, but she didn't want to give it to her elders. She had been Gu Min's mother-in-law for many years. Every time she asked that woman to set a rule, Gu Min was unwilling. She had never seen such an unfilial woman. When Gu Min passed away, she secretly clapped her hands and cheered. With Gu Min's death, her filial and obedient son would definitely come back. She couldn't bear to see her son dying for Gu Min. She specially found a woman who looked like Gu Min and planned to make her Lu Shi's concubine. Under her secretly instigation and support, the woman stole the inheritance left by Gu Min and bullied the child she left behind. A dead person was dead, and a man was a man. Which man would push away a beautiful woman for a dead person? However, things didn't go as he wished. Not only did Lu Shi reject her, but he also changed his temperament. He whipped the woman to death in front of all the servants in the courtyard and skinned her. The old woman heard the news and was so scared that her legs turned to jelly. After that, Lu Shi moved out of the clan land and opened a residence. He didn't even take a step in the door. The old woman almost vomited to death. Whether it was her cousin, Gu Min, or Lu Shi, all three women of the same lineage, none of them could get along with her. The old woman became even angrier when she thought of the trauma and grievances she had suffered all these years. Now, Lu Shi wanted to separate from the clan. He must have grown up. Lu Zhai frowned and said unhappily, "Mother, no matter what, Lanting is still your granddaughter." Ever since Lu Zhai and his brothers got married, the mother became more and more domineering and willful. She wanted to control everyone and everything. When her father was still alive, he could still restrain her. After their father was gone, she became more and more lawless. Now, she didn't care about the old lord's identity and age. She called her granddaughter B*TCH in front of everyone. Lu Zhai was a gentleman and couldn't stand such filthy words. The old lord said stubbornly, "I don't have such an unfilial granddaughter." Lu Zhai was a grandfather and almost 5 years old, but he still couldn't do anything to his mother. The old lord scolded Lu Zhai. Lu Zhai was already in a bad mood. Faced with his unreasonable mother, he simply retorted, "Mother, the situation is better than the person. Lanting is a duke with millions of strong soldiers, not a granddaughter who listens to your scolding. To put it bluntly, she controls the life and death of our clan. We are meat on the chopping block. We can only accept her independence without any complaints." When the old lord heard this, he suppressed his anger in his heart. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.